Chapter 871. The night deepened, and just as dawn arrived, a huge storm arrived. That day, young Master Jun used all his means, using himself as a hostage to force the Hongjun Pagoda to release its shocking power to protect him and Mei Shuiyan, successfully absorbing the terrifying medicinal power of the golden jade fluid for his own use. With the help of the ultimate cheating device, the Hongjun Pagoda, the two of them successfully completed the task. After the breakthrough, the two still did not leave, continuing to stay in the Hongjun Pagoda. Mei Shuiyan was consolidating her cultivation. The Hongjun Pagoda was the safest, most peaceful place, and had a huge amount of pure spiritual energy. It was the best choice for consolidating one's cultivation. As for Jun Moxie, he was busy concocting pills, or doing something else. In any case, he was overjoyed and overworked. When the two came out, they went to an empty place outside the city, and stayed there for a while. Their goal was naturally to deal with the heavenly tribulation that would come along with their continuous advancement in cultivation. If it came quickly and passed as quickly as possible, then everything would be fine. However, the two of them waited for several hours, but there was no response at all. This made Mei Shuiyan very puzzled. It was not difficult to understand why people would be careless, but the heavenly tribulations were the killing intent of the heavens. Could it be that they would be careless? The two of them had leveled up at the same time, and had leveled up several times. In other words, each of them had accumulated at least 5 or 6 heavenly tribulations. But now there was no reaction. The two guessed for a while, but had no clue. But they could not just wait like idiots. Confused, they went to Chrysanthemum City again, and killed Xia Dongting that night. Previously, they did not have enough strength to kill him. Now that they had enough strength, wouldn't they be stupid not to make a move? The target this time was still a 3rd-level saint. Even after his advancement, young Master Jun still had to use his true strength in order to kill him in one blow. But it was also because of this that his true strength was fully displayed, and the heavenly tribulations that had not reacted for a long time, suddenly they reacted. Furthermore, it seemed like it wasn't just Jun Dashao's heavenly tribulation. Both of their heavenly tribulations had arrived together. Therefore, ever since the two of them came out of the Chen family, the dark clouds in the sky had been gathering, almost ceaselessly. It was as if they wanted to gather all the clouds in the world on this day, on this morning, all of them in one place. The lightning that had been accumulating for an unknown period of time gradually approached from afar. The dense dark clouds slowly formed a huge vortex in the sky, and finally formed a huge eye. It was as if a one-eyed monster had suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, after a flash of lightning, it did not immediately descend. Instead, it disappeared into the eye and became completely motionless. Then, another batch of dark clouds gathered and disappeared after a flash of lightning, and so on and so forth. In the wee hours of the morning, the dark clouds in the sky pressed down, giving people a very strange feeling. It was within reach. It was as if he only needed to stretch out his hand, and he would be able to tear off a portion of the thick dark clouds. Furthermore, the tops of a few tall trees had already reached into the dark clouds. One could see how dense the dark clouds had become at this moment. The intense pressure of heaven and earth was getting heavier and heavier. Even the whistling sound of the wind that used to come and go freely seemed to be struggling and unable to move forward in the sky above. There were already close to 100 terrifyingly huge eyes, densely covering the dark clouds. There was no lightning, nor any other color. There was only jet black. Black, this kind of black that was even darker than the night. Even if a person placed their own finger in front of their eyes, they would not be able to see it at all. Always preparing, always gathering, completely without any extra movements. But this kind of heavy pressure made everyone unable to breathe. This kind of supreme pressure that came from heaven and earth, for ordinary people and low-level Xian cultivators, was naturally only a kind of pressure. But for experts who had already grasped part of the power of heaven and earth, It was an indescribable shock. Within a radius of 10,000 miles, all the experts above the supreme level, at this moment, did not dare to move at all. No matter if it was a superior supreme, a venerable, a saint or a saint emperor, all of them had to be extremely careful. They didn't even dare to breathe too loudly, much less move. Most importantly, they didn't dare to use even the slightest bit of their Xian energy. They were afraid that if they moved slightly, with the guidance of their qi, this unknown and terrifying heavenly tribulation would come for them. This was not a joke, nor was it a groundless fear, but a real possibility. When the heavenly tribulation came, it would only look for the person who initiated it. But if someone else took the initiative to help, or, coincidentally, entered the range of the heavenly tribulation, the level of the heavenly tribulation would correspondingly increase, increasing its power by 2 times or even more. Everyone connected to it would be reduced to ashes. But in this situation, this scale of heavenly tribulation, it was something that had never been seen before. So no one dared to move, no matter how strong the experts were. Who knew who this heavenly tribulation was looking for? What if the moment I move, the heavenly tribulation comes for me, and I become the scapegoat for someone else? Wouldn't I die an unjust death? Furthermore, this vat is a super huge one. Once it comes into contact with it, it's definitely not a 9 out of 10 chance of survival, but a 10 out of 10 chance of survival, or even a 100 chance of survival. With such a terrifying battle array, even if all the experts of the 3 holy lands were to be brought over to make up the numbers, even if the heavenly tribulation didn't increase in strength due to the increase in the number of people, they would still be turned into a pile of ashes. Such a scale, even if the 9 nether first young master came, he would also be shocked. From the beginning to the end, in the tens of thousands of years, there had never been such a strange situation, not even once. A total of 99 eyes stared silently in the sky. The energy was still accumulating, but there was still no movement. It couldn't be that there were 99 experts breaking through at the same time and attracting the heavenly tribulation at the same time, right? But why hasn't the lightning struck yet? What are they waiting for? All the trees were silent, waiting for the rain to come. Finally, all of a sudden, the piercingly cold wind whistling in the air seemed to have been cut in half by a knife, and suddenly stopped blowing violently. A moment ago, it was still raging like a tsunami, but now it was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Such a strong contrast caused everyone's heart to tremble. It's here. June Moxie and Mei Xuan were still waiting on the tree, as if they were afraid that the lightning would not strike them, so they purposely placed themselves at the highest spot, 19, 20, 35, 77. Right now, June Dashao was lying on the lap of a beauty, counting the number of the huge eyes in the sky with his fingers. As he counted, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and said, "That's not right, this number doesn't seem right." "What's not right?" Mei Xuan asked. "Breakthrough, under normal circumstances, this thing will only appear once." June Moxie pointed at the strange phenomenon in the sky and said, "When the corresponding energy is used up, it will pass. Even though this time, both of us have surpassed many levels, and both of us are going through the heavenly tribulation together, it is understandable that the number is slightly higher, but it shouldn't be as high as the number in the sky right now. Isn't this bullying?" June Dashao was a little annoyed, and he said, "Look, I went from Venerable Level 3 to Venerable Level 4, then Holy Level 1 to Holy Level 4, and then to Holy Emperor Level 3. This is at most 8 breakthroughs. As for you, because the 2 of us were one when you broke through, your strength was the same as mine. In other words, the 2 of us combined would only have 16 lightning strikes at most. Even if the 2 of us went through it together and doubled the number, it would only be 32 lightning strikes. But this thing actually appeared 99. More than 3 times. What is this?" June Dashao said angrily. "If this isn't playing with people, then what is?" This evil heavens, where did they learn arithmetic from? Mei Shuyan put her hand on her forehead and said sadly, "Ah? Why don't you go up and reason with them? Do you think I'm stupid?" "I'm not going." June Moxie refused decisively. "Whoever goes is an idiot." "What a joke, jumping up into the sky to reason with the heavenly tribulation. Even if you want to die, you don't have to do that. Are you trying to murder your husband?" Mei Shuyan giggled and her body trembled. These two, in the face of such a terrible heavenly tribulation, did not care at all, and just laughed and scolded, as usual. Suddenly, at the moment when the sky was silent to the extreme, and also at the moment when the color of the sky was dark to the extreme, the clouds suddenly whistled violently, and then the entire world suddenly erupted with light. An unprecedentedly powerful ball of purple lightning suddenly formed at the center of the dark clouds, and then accompanied by an earth-shattering roar of thunder, a pillar of lightning as thick as a water tank came crashing down. Straight, accurately striking the tree that the two of them were hiding in. The entire earth trembled violently. At this moment, Jean Mubai and the rest were in the Chun family's courtyard, and they were the closest to the place where the heavenly tribulation was happening. Everyone felt as if they couldn't breathe. What kind of monster was going through the heavenly tribulation? How could it have such a terrifying momentum? June Moxie and Mei Shuyan used the yin-yang escape at the same time, causing their bodies to turn into nothingness. The water tank-like lightning pillar whizzed over, and almost at the moment it formed, it struck the towering tree. Hai Wu Ye and the rest waited with their mouths agape, their eyes filled with hopelessness and despair. Nobody had expected that the bastard who was going through the heavenly tribulation would be so close to them. Looks like today, none of them would be able to escape this calamity. Everyone understood that what was going to happen next was going to be an unparalleled explosion. Or perhaps, with this strike of lightning, everything within a few hundred feet would be turned into ashes, and the ashes would spread until all the energy of the heavenly tribulation was used up. Chapter 872. It was believed that after this lightning tribulation, everyone here, no matter if they were experts or commoners, would not be spared. This goddamn bastard, who would break through their tribulation in a densely populated area. Especially such a terrifying lightning tribulation. This was simply asking for death, and he even wanted to implicate others. The lightning pillar fell with a loud rumble, and the unprecedented explosion that everyone expected, unexpectedly did not occur. This huge bolt of lightning was like a drop of water that had melted into the vast ocean. From start to finish, there was no sound at all, not a single sound. What exactly was going on? A huge question mark rose in everyone's heart. The momentum of the lightning was clearly not fake. Such a shocking momentum, could it be a feint? They had never heard of such a thing. Following that, the second, third, the frequency of the lightning pillar's descent became more and more frequent, and the volume also became thicker and thicker, gradually striking down from the sky without a moment's pause. The entire ground was trembling, shaking like a sieve, the gravel on the ground bouncing up and down from the thunder. But, after the lightning struck down, the sound of the explosion still did not ring out. Heavens! What is going on? Could it be that the person undergoing the tribulation can actually use his own strength to resolve such a lightning tribulation? How is this possible? He Chiu stood in front of the window, dumbfounded, watching everything, his thoughts already stagnant. It seemed like this was the only reasonable explanation, but was this really possible? In another place in the city, on the roof of the inn, another 3 figures stood side by side, staring at the place where the crazy lightning and thunder descended not far away. Everyone's face was solemn. Amongst these 3 people, the one in the middle was dressed in fluttering white clothes, delicate and graceful. It was Qiaoying, and beside her were 2 thin middle-aged men, one on the left and one on the right. They just stood quietly on the roof, not using any profound energy, but all 3 of them had an extraordinary bearing, like a towering mountain. as if the dark clouds in the sky had been lifted up by their tall bodies, with a single shoulder. What exactly is going on? Is there really someone passing through? Qiao Ying's low voice seemed to be asking herself, but also seemed to be asking the other two beside her. The expressions of the two people beside her became complicated at the same time. They looked at each other but didn't say anything, because even now, they didn't dare to confirm what exactly was going on. If it was said that only a single person was passing through this stage and was able to calmly deal with it without showing any signs of weakening, then it would be too sensational. Or it should be. The middle-aged man on the left hesitated and spoke in an extremely uncertain tone. His eyes, which had always been as sharp as an eagle's, were now filled with a rare confusion. When he said this, he also asked himself in his heart, is this true or not? If it's just one person passing the test that caused such a commotion. The eyes of the middle-aged man on the right shone with respect and shock. Then the strength of this person, compared to the 9 nether first young master 10,000 years ago, even if he's still not as strong, he's not too far off. The commotion we made when we passed through, even the most thrilling time, was only a fraction of what we're seeing now. Qiao Ying exclaimed in shock. If that's the case, then this person's strength is many times stronger than ours. There really are people with such strength in this world. Even the 9 serenities and 14 masters definitely don't have such strength. Such a strong person can only be compared to the 9 nether first young master back then, although the 9 nether first young master was slightly stronger. In this world, there's no one who can match up to him. That's right. If there's really only one person passing through, and he's able to pass the test in the end, then this person's strength is indeed unparalleled in this world. He's truly worthy of the title of number 1 in the world. The two people on the left and right looked at the place where the lightning struck with a fanatical gaze. Their faces slowly became agitated. Qiao Ying rubbed her eyes and looked at her two companions. A look of disbelief surfaced in her eyes. Her cherry lips slowly widened and she was dumbstruck. These two guards of hers were the peerless experts who stood at the peak of the world? This was the Heart Seal, Heavenly Sword, and Willful Wild Saber? This was too unbelievable, right? Qiao Ying felt that these two people might be imposters. Someone must have impersonated the Sky Sword and Invincible Saber to follow her. Sky Sword, Invincible Saber. The two great protectors of Heaven's Saint Palace. Two experts whose strength was definitely not inferior to the Palace Lord of Heaven's Saint Palace. Heart Seal, Heavenly Sword, Qing Yin Shao, Willful Wild Saber, Chu Wu Hui. These were two legends. The two legends of the Xian continent. Two great prides. Right now, these two people who were like legends were actually looking at the direction of the lightning with a look of reverence and worship. It was as if they were primary school students who had suddenly seen their idols in their dreams, prostrating themselves on the ground in reverence. Who was the one undergoing the tribulation under the lightning? Who was it? Was it a human or a monster? Whether it's a human or a monster, it's the indisputable number 1 under the heavens. As if he had seen through Qiao Ying's thoughts, Chu Wu Hui gave a faint conclusion. In the darkness far away, a black figure silently rose up. Under the endless darkness and flashes of lightning, this person was like a faint shadow, as if he had become one with the endless darkness around him. This person's figure was already less than 15 zhang away from the center of the lightning tribulation. This was already an extremely dangerous distance. As long as the area of the lightning tribulation expanded, he would have nowhere to run even if he wanted to. Just who was it that had the ability to get so close to this place, and also had the guts to get so close to this place? If there was anyone in the world who had such courage and ability, it seemed that there was only one person, and the person who had come was this person. The 9 serenities and 14 masters. Right now, he was also looking at the center of the lightning tribulation from afar. He had a complicated look in his eyes as he muttered to himself, this person who triggered the heavenly punishment after breaking through and is currently devouring the might of the heavens and earth, who is it, in this world, who has the ability to do so? The eyes of the 9 serenities and 14 masters were undoubtedly sharper than the others. Although the others were curious as to why there was no movement after the lightning tribulation struck, they could only guess that the person undergoing the tribulation had used his own strength to resolve the lightning tribulation. But they did not think of another possibility. Or rather, they did not dare to think in that direction. But the 9 serenities and 14 masters was watching from a close distance and could see everything clearly. Those descending lightning tribulation had not been resolved by the person undergoing the tribulation, but had been directly devoured by that person. The most terrifying thing was that even at such a close distance, he still could not see what was there. There was clearly only a huge tree. The 9 serenities and 14 masters watched with a complicated look in his eyes. This display of the might of the heavens and earth had truly convinced this arrogant and self-proclaimed number 1 under the heavens. No matter who the person inside is, I'm not his match. I admit defeat. The moment this thought appeared in his mind, the 9 serenities and 14 masters almost wanted to die. It was extremely depressing, because he knew that he could not do what the person undergoing the tribulation had done. Even when he himself had a breakthrough, the 9 serenities and 14 masters could only forcefully endure the lightning tribulation, stay away from the crowd, and find an unlucky mountain peak. After every breakthrough, he would be covered in cuts and bruises, and the unlucky mountain peak would be erased from this world. But this mysterious expert in front of him could not only calmly undergo the tribulation, but could also silently devour the most violent energy in the world. What kind of huge gap was this? The 9 nether 14th young master stood there in a daze, staring blankly at the spot where the lightning had landed. He'd completely forgotten to conceal himself. Under the dancing lightning, the tall and lonely figure of the 9 serenities and 14 masters was also discovered by the experts from the 3 holy lands. It's him! Yes, it's that lunatic, the 9 serenities and 14 masters. Our most important target this time is also the most powerful and terrifying opponent. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked at the figure at the edge of the lightning. But at this time, the might of the heavens and earth was very strong, and no one dared to move recklessly. All the experts were turned into statues that could not be moved at all in the face of such an inconceivable event. No matter how much hatred there was between them, they had to live in harmony for the time being. In their ears, there was only the sound of the destructive thunder and the huge lightning that continued to rumble, almost ceaselessly striking down, one after another. They were as dense as a downpour. Without stopping, they flew towards that direction, towards that mysterious expert, crazily chopping down. Everyone's hearts were also pounding at this moment. Whether it was the Holy Emperor, the saints, or the guardians, everyone's mouths were dry. What if the person who was resisting the heavenly might at the place where the lightning was striking was me? None of the experts dared to think about this. But the more they did not dare to think about it, the more they could not help but secretly fantasize about it. Every time they had this thought, they had to immediately suppress it. At the same time, their hearts would tremble with excitement, and their bodies would spasm as if they were being electrocuted under the watchful eyes of everyone. Even though the sound of the thunder in the sky was vast and powerful, there was still a time when it would weaken. Under the continuous consumption of the thunder and lightning, it finally weakened, and finally disappeared completely. Then, the clouds in the sky changed, and the one that was surrounded by the stars had been replaced by another huge eye. Then, the other 3 huge eyes around it moved and merged into the one in the center. After a series of waves, an even more ferocious thunder and lightning came pouring down like a waterfall. Oh my God! Am I going crazy, or is this world going crazy? The saint who spoke was trembling all over, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. This sentence was what everyone was thinking. What was unbelievable was that the second lightning strike lasted from dawn to noon, and then into the afternoon and into the night. It actually lasted for an entire day. The pillar of lightning became thicker and thicker, and its strength also seemed to grow stronger and stronger. But it did not cause any damage. Even the huge tree at the center of the lightning tribulation continued to stand tall, without the slightest change. Everyone stood there dumbfounded as they watched for the whole day. They did not eat, drink, or even blink for an entire day. Among these people, there were the three holy emperors, Zhan Mubai, Hai Wuye, and He Zhiqiu, as well as over 40 saints. There was also Qiao Ying, Cheng Yin Shao, Chu Wu Hui, and the 9 serenities and 14 masters. Everyone seemed as if they were in a dream, their expressions as if they were talking in a dream. Finally, the thunder stopped abruptly. The lightning disappeared instantly. The dense dark clouds in the sky, in a trance, had already completely dispersed in an instant. Only then did everyone raise their heads. Only then did they realize that the sky was completely clear, filled with stars and a bright moon. This lightning tribulation actually lasted for an entire day. Cheng Yin Shao groaned as his body flashed, disappearing from where he stood. Right now, he was going to pay his respects to that senior who was undergoing the tribulation. Today, no matter what, he had to see this senior who had reached the heavenly connection realm. There was only one goal. There was no evil intent, nor any utilitarian thoughts. There was only an extremely simple thought, or rather, a desire that came from the bottom of his heart. I want to see him. That was all. Perhaps, apart from this opportunity, he would never have the chance to see this person again, or even hear any news about this person. If he missed this opportunity, it would be the greatest regret of his life. Chu Wu Hui immediately came to his senses and chased after him like the wind. In his eyes there was only fanaticism, and behind him there was also Qiao Ying. Zhan Mubai and the rest were also madly rushing in this direction. But the fastest was still 9 serenities and 14 masters. After all, he was too close to the scene of the tribulation, just a mere distance of a few dozen zhang. Before he could even use his movement technique, 9 serenities and 14 masters had already arrived under the tree. It was completely empty. Not even the shadow of a ghost could be seen. 9 serenities and 14 masters stretched out his hand and caressed the bark of this towering tree, his eyes burning with passion. Dozens of experts landed at the side and quickly formed a large circle. They looked quietly at this place and also at 9 serenities and 14 masters. But right now, in everyone's hearts, 9 serenities and 14 masters was not the main character. The main character had disappeared. Or could it be, was it this tree that was undergoing the tribulation? Was it this old elm tree that had lived for who knows how many years? Just as everyone was at a loss of what to do, Jun Moxie had already entered the Hongjun Pagoda with Mei Shuyan. He did not forget that among these people, there was still Qiao Ying with the all-seeing eye. Although his cultivation had a huge breakthrough, whether or not he could make the other party's all-seeing eye lose its effect, Jun Moxie did not have the slightest bit of confidence. Moreover, even if he could be immune to it, Mei Shuyan was still a beginner, and her unlocking heaven's fortune was still very shallow. Therefore, Jun Dashao might as well go all out and return to the Hongjun Pagoda to sleep. I'll let these people be shocked for a while longer. Besides, 9 serenities and 14 masters had arrived. If they could fight a round first, that would be the best thing. I definitely can't disturb such a good deal that's waiting to be taken advantage of. Chapter 873. The 9 serenities and 14 masters stood with his hands behind his back, as if he did not see the experts of the 3 holy lands slowly gathering around him. It was as if he did not care about them at all. He only made one movement, and that was to raise his head and stare fixedly at the sky, as if he was thinking hard about something. What was going on in front of him? The unforeseen event in front of him caused this peerless madman to sink into a deep confusion. Even though he faced the crowd and raised his head, everyone present could not see what his face looked like. It was as if it was just a hazy shadow. The moment Xiao Ying arrived, she had already activated her all-seeing eye and looked at the 9 serenities and 14 masters. She had to see through this demon's true face. It was rare for her to have such a good opportunity to see his true face from such a close distance. However, Xiao Ying was destined to be disappointed, because what she saw was still a thick fog. Her all-seeing eye that could see through all illusions was actually unable to see through the 9 serenities and 14 masters. This discovery caused Xiao Ying to be greatly shocked. 14th young master, it has been over 300 years since we last met. You are still as elegant as ever. This is truly worthy of celebration. Qing Yinshao looked at the scene silently, then raised his head and smiled gently at the 9 serenities and 14 masters. His tone seemed to be respectful yet calm, but there was a hint of vigilance in it. Compared to the other people of the 3 Holy Lands who saw the 9 serenities and 14 masters as their mortal enemy, Qing Yinzhao's attitude was undoubtedly much gentler. Because he knew that the position of the 9 serenities and 14 masters would always be ranked behind the strange races among all the enemies of the 3 Holy Lands. Even though the threat he posed was even greater than the strange races. This was also the highest level of awareness of a guardian. Even though both sides still had to fight to the death, it was definitely not because of hatred, but because of their different ideologies. Qing Yinshao, I remember you. You haven't changed much in appearance, you still look like you're on the verge of death. The 9 Nether 14th young master raised his head towards the sky, not looking at Qing Yinshao, but calling out Qing Yinzhao's name. There's still me, 14th young master. Don't tell me that you only remember Lao Cheng and forgot about me? Chu Wu Hui said with a smile. How could I forget? Willful wild saber Chu Wu Hui. This young master is truly regretful. 300 years ago, just as this young master was about to make you live up to your name, all my efforts were in vain. To think that you were lucky enough to return. The 9 Nether 14th young master's tone carried a hint of mockery. Bullshit. Chu Wu Hui roared and jumped up. That was because this daddy was careless and fell into your trap. Why don't we fight right now? Even if we fight another 10 rounds, you still won't be my match. 9 serenities and 14 masters snorted and said, Heaven Saint Palace's sky sword and invincible blade. Their boss name is actually that of 2 scoundrels. However, these 2 scoundrels are at least a little stronger than those lowly scums below. This young master is very comforted. As he said that, 9 serenities and 14 masters' cold eyes stared at Zhang Mubai and the rest. The disdain in his eyes was obvious. Zhang Mubai was the holy emperor, but when he was stared at by 9 serenities and 14 masters' gaze, he felt his eyes hurt. It was as if they were being shone by a strong light, and his eyes were so sore that he wanted to cry. Qing Yinshao laughed and said, If we're only scoundrels, then you, 9 serenities and 14 masters, can be considered a complete scoundrel. We're all the same, there's no need to be polite. 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed and said, As expected, you're not a hypocrite. You guys are here, and I'm also here. Looks like we'll have to fight eventually. Shall we do it here and now? Or should we do it another time? Qing Yinshao smiled lightly and said, Could it be that 14th young master can't wait any longer and wants to start a massacre? Old friends are right in front of you, don't tell me you don't have any face to speak of? There are a few people who are destined to die. 9 serenities and 14 masters Lengling said. Even if the entire world's face is piled in front of me, I'll kill them one by one. Furthermore, the face of the 2 of you has never been considered anything. Dare I ask who exactly? Chu Wu Hui asked in a deep voice. What I despise the most in my life are those who launch sneak attacks and plot against others. What I despise the most is those who take advantage of others when they're down. Especially those who hold high positions but still use sneak attacks and plot against others. I won't let a single one of them off. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters said calmly. I understand. You're referring to those few holy emperors who ambushed you after the seal in the Tianfa forest was broken. Qing Yin Xiao nodded his head lightly. 14th young master, dare I ask, if they don't use sneak attacks and fight you one-on-one, what are their chances of winning? What are their chances of survival? What a joke! If it's a fair fight, this young master will definitely snap their necks in the blink of an eye. Fighting me one-on-one, are they even worthy? 9 Serenities and 14 Masters laughed maniacally. That's right, they're really not worthy. Qing Yin Xiao snorted. Since you know that they're not your match in a head-on fight, why do you still want them to fight you openly and not use sneak attacks and plots against you? Everyone has their own standpoints. If you want to kill them, you have your reasons. If they want to plot against you, it's only right. 14th young master, if every one of them can defeat you head-on, who do you think would ambush you? It's precisely because they don't have the strength to fight you fairly, but they have a reason to kill you. If they don't ambush you, what other methods can they use? 9 Serenities and 14 Masters snorted and said, That's not wrong. Everyone has their own reasons. But after doing it, everyone has their own responsibilities to bear. If that's the case, if you want to kill, you can. But don't give your so-called reasons. Because any reason is preposterous and laughable. Chu Wu Hui laughed coldly. In this world, any reason can be refuted. Regardless of whether it's righteous, dirty, or shameless, a reason is a reason. Even if it's to shirk responsibility, it's still the most dignified rubbish. Only strength is the best reason. And the real reason. He looked at 9 Serenities and 14 Masters and said slowly, And you hold the real reason. So, being despicable and shameless is not the reason they should die. The real reason is your strength, and only your strength. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters laughed maniacally. Well said. Well said. Because of this reason, I won't fight with you today. I might as well let them live for a few more days, and let me make some preparations and cooperate with you, ha ha ha. He was taught a lesson by these two, but he was not angry at all. But Qing Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui's hearts sank. With 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' strength, what else did he need to prepare? Who did he need to cooperate with? This was a huge problem. But after the two looked at each other, they did not continue asking. Because they knew that 9 Serenities and 14 Masters would definitely not say anything. They could only be more careful in the future. 14th young master, I have another question. Qing Yin Zhao's eyes became fervent. He had created this harmonious atmosphere just to ask this question. This was his dream. Who was that person just now? Qing Yin Xiao took a step forward and looked at the tree in front of him. He asked again, Who was the person who was here just now? The moment he asked this question, everyone's ears perked up. Everyone was relatively far away, with only 9 Serenities and 14 Masters standing the closest. Although the others did not see it, with 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' position and ability, he definitely saw it. Unfortunately, I'm not sure either. A strange expression appeared in 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' eyes. It seemed to be fear, but also admiration. He said calmly, I looked for a long time, but I did not see a single person here. From start to finish, I only saw the lightning strike the tree, and then it disappeared. He laughed bitterly and said, Just now, when I got close, I tried to hit the tree, but I only pierced through it. As he said that, he flicked his sleeves, and powder flew everywhere. On the trunk of the old elm tree, there was a big hole that went straight from the front to the back. With this, everyone's suspicions were dispelled. But the question in their hearts was even greater. Who was it? No matter who it is, this person is definitely a peerless expert in the world, an invincible expert. Even this young master is ashamed of his inferiority. 9 serenities and 14 masters sighed with some disappointment. Qing Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui were both very clear about the meaning behind this sigh of the 9 nether 14th young master. All along, everyone believed that 9 serenities and 14 masters was the number 1 expert in the world. Even the 9 nether 14th young master himself thought so. No one thought that he was arrogant, because there had never been an existence that could defeat 9 serenities and 14 masters. This was an indisputable fact. Thus, to deal with 9 serenities and 14 masters, it had always been a group of people ganging up on him. And it was not just 1 or 2 people ganging up on him. But now, such a person had appeared, causing even 9 serenities and 14 masters to feel ashamed of his inferiority. With just a single lightning tribulation, he had been chased down from the throne of number 1. One could imagine how gloomy 9 serenities and 14 masters was feeling right now. I'm confident that I can endure that kind of power of heaven and earth just now, 9 serenities and 14 masters said heavily. But I can't do what he did. I'll never be able to do it. Devour the lightning tribulation. This was the end of the sentence that the 9 nether 14th young master silently added in his heart. Qing Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui looked at each other, feeling a sense of loss. 9 serenities and 14 masters thought for a while, then suddenly raised his head and asked, "You asked me a question, and I answered it. So, I'll also ask you a question, and you have to answer it." His gaze gradually became fierce, like 2 cruel swords piercing through the night sky. "What is it? As long as I know it, I'll answer it truthfully." Chu Wu Hui could hear the danger in 9 serenities and 14 masters' words. He knew that this question was not easy to answer, and his heart couldn't help but become heavy. This question was actually able to provoke 9 serenities and 14 masters' anger. Just based on this point alone, it was definitely not a simple question. 9 firmament first old master. Who came up with this name? Whose idea was it? 9 serenities and 14 masters asked word by word. The fierce glint in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. Chapter 874. 9 firmament first old master? Qing Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui looked at each other. This was the first time they had heard of such a strange name. Although the two of them had several hundred years of experience and had instantly deduced that this strange name was the complete opposite of the 9 nether young masters, they still couldn't understand the mystery behind it, and couldn't help but be stunned. Who was the one who came up with this name? Answer me. The 9 nether 14th young master was filled with disdain towards Zhan Mu Bai and the other saint emperors of the 3 Holy Lands. But he still trusted the people of the Heaven Saint Palace, who were a level higher. Because at the level of Qing Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui, they were already at the absolute peak of the world. They could not possibly lie, and were even more disdainful of lying, even to himself, the 9 nether 14th young master. Who is the 9 firmament first old master? Have you heard of him? Qing Yin Xiao looked at the crowd. Although he had already guessed that there was something strange about the 9 serenities and 14 masters asking about this name, he had not been involved in the affairs of the world for a long time, so he asked his subordinates. "Ha ha ha, the name 9 firmament first old master is not bad." Zhan Mubai laughed. Right now, he really had nothing to worry about. Just now, the 9 serenities and 14 masters had clearly said that they would definitely not let him go. At the same time, he was very relieved because the 3 ultimate experts of Heaven Saint Palace were here: Qiao Ying, Qing Yin Xiao, and Chu Wu Hui. Even if the 9 serenities and 14 masters were to act on the spot, even if the chances of victory were not high, they would still be able to protect themselves. So right now, Zhan Mubai's attitude could be said to be very relaxed. he said in a mocking tone. The name, Nine Firmament First Old Master? What a good name! She's really a perfect match for the Nine Nether 14th Young Master. Too perfect? Isn't it a perfect match? Then tell me, what kind of match is it? The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters said coldly. One is the 9 heavens, the other is the 9 nether. The former is high above, the sky above, the sky above, the earth below. Jean Mubai chuckled. It's really symmetrical. One was number 1, and the other was number 14. Regardless of seniority, they were absolute opposite. In the end, one was the young master, and the other was the master. Ha ha! Jean Mubai suddenly burst into wild laughter. He laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out of his eyes. He rocked back and forth. Young master is the junior, old master is the ancestor. There was a difference in seniority. It's at least 3 generations. That's so little. Whether it's the difference between heaven and earth, or the difference between 1 and 14, it's much smaller. What a huge improvement! Ha ha! What a joke! Suddenly, pa! A crisp sound rang out. It was Jean Mubai who had been slapped hard on the face. This slap caused his entire body to instantly lose its center of gravity. His body slanted sideways as he staggered backwards. But the second slap that followed immediately caused him to come back. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters suddenly made a move. Although Chu Wu Hui and the rest were already on guard, they were completely unable to stop it. They could only watch helplessly as he slapped Jean Mubai again and again, unable to react in time. This speed could be said to be unparalleled in the world. Just as Jean Mubai was about to let out a roar, he suddenly felt his throat being gripped by a large hand. His entire body was lifted off the ground, and his entire body was lifted up high. At the same time, a vast and uncontrollable force seeped into his meridians like the fangs of a ghost. It instantly controlled his meridians, extended to his dantian, and locked onto his vital points. All of his xian qi was firmly controlled. At the same time, every single part of his body that could move was firmly controlled. In just the blink of an eye, Jean Mubai had fallen from a high and mighty holy emperor to a wretched state where he could not even control his own life or death. 14th Young Master. Please stop, we can talk things out. Cheng Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui stepped forward at the same time. The two of them did not have the time to stop it, and their hearts were already trembling. When they saw the 9 Nether 14th Young Master's exquisite methods, completely controlling a 3rd-level Saint Emperor in an instant, they couldn't help but be greatly shocked. Stop! If anyone dares to take another step forward, I will bathe the 3 holy lands in blood. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters furrowed his brows and laughed coldly. With a wave of his hand, the space in front of him was sliced into 2. With just a simple wave, he and Jean Mubai had already entered another space. Cheng Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui were less than half a zhang away from the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. They only needed to stretch out their hands, and they would be able to touch the body of the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. But this distance of half a zhang was like the distance between heaven and earth. This was the true so close yet worlds apart technique. With a wave of his finger, the space was shattered. This was not a legend, a myth, nor was it a boast. It had actually happened right in front of their eyes. Cheng Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui both sucked in a breath of cold air. Just from this technique alone, the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters had recovered at least 80% of his strength. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters who had recovered 80% of their strength was already not someone that the two of them could contend against. It was not difficult for the two of them to break through the spatial barrier of the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters if they worked together. But they would need at least half the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Half the time it took to brew a cup of tea did not seem long, but at this moment, even the blink of an eye was too long. If they really waited for half the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the dish would have already turned cold. Furthermore, if the two of them really went over, then, no matter if it was too late or not, the matter of bathing the 3 holy lands in blood, that the 9 serenities and 14 masters had mentioned would become a fact. With the strength of the 9 serenities and 14 masters, he was completely capable of doing it. This was a pure lunatic. There was nothing in this world that he did not dare to do. Although it was a naked threat, the two of them had no choice but to submit. The two of them stopped their movements at the same time and called out, "Brother 14, please show mercy. Now is not the time for you to kill Jean Moubai." "I did not say that I would kill him, at least not now." The 9 serenities and 14 masters' expression was extremely indifferent as he said, "I just want to ask him a few questions. Don't worry, with the 3 of you here, even if I really want to kill someone, I will only kill the 3 of you first. Why would I lower myself to kill this piece of trash? He is not worthy of it now. Far from it." The 9 serenities and 14 masters grabbed Jean Moubai's neck with one hand and lifted his feet off the ground. He said coldly, "You piece of trash, do you know the 9 firmament first master?" Jean Moubai was a holy emperor of a generation. His cultivation was extremely high and his status was extremely respected. In front of the 9 serenities and 14 masters, he did not have the slightest ability to resist at all. He was like a child being held in the hands of an adult and being wantonly shaken. Moreover, he was being called a piece of trash. One could imagine the humiliation. He knew that his estimation was completely wrong. The 9 serenities and 14 masters had already recovered. He originally thought that the 9 serenities and 14 masters' internal injuries had not healed and wanted to use their sharp tongue to agitate him so that everyone would gang up on him. With the 3 guardians here, it could be said to be a heaven-sent opportunity. However, the 3 guardians actually did not stop the 9 serenities and 14 masters from attacking him. This made Jean Moubai's heart instantly turn cold. In the face of such a predicament, Jean Moubai was still able to calm his mind. He panted with difficulty and laughed. "The 9 firmament first master. I don't know this name. Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you." There was a crazy glee in Jean Moubai's eyes. At this moment, he had already been humiliated by him. Now, he no longer cared about his life or death. However, he could also see that the 9 serenities and 14 masters cared a lot about the name, the 9 firmament first master. Just from the literal meaning, the 9 firmament first master and the 9 serenities and 14 masters were simply opposites. This name was undoubtedly a thorn in the heart of the 9 serenities and 14 masters. How could Jean Moubai let go of such an opportunity to make his enemy suffer? "Even if I can't beat you, I finally know how to disgust you. Anyway, I have no hope of surviving. Why should I let you live? Before I die, I will do my best to disgust you." "Good. You have guts." The 9 serenities and 14 masters clenched his fist, and a scorching hot stream of air instantly drilled into Jean Moubai's meridians. Jean Moubai suddenly felt that the blood in his body was about to boil, and even his brain was about to explode. This was unparalleled pain. The cruelest punishment in the world was probably no better than this. Jean Moubai could no longer maintain his composure. With a blood-curdling scream, he fainted weakly. However, the next moment, this stream of air instantly turned into a bone-chilling cold. It directly froze him awake. His mind was extremely clear, but his body was almost frozen. His blood, which was almost boiling, suddenly fell back to the freezing point. A thick layer of white frost condensed on Jean Moubai's body at a speed visible to the naked eye. "I only want to know how the name 9 firmament's first master came about." The 9 serenities and 14 masters looked at him coldly. "Tell me, and I will let you go. Since there's a 9 nether 14th young master in this world, there'll naturally be the 9 firmament's number 1. Grandpa." Jean Mubai coughed, and a trace of blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. Immediately, it froze into an eye-catching blood-colored ice cube, freezing at the side of his mouth. But he laughed evilly. "It's that simple," the 9 serenities and 14 masters' eyes focused, and the aura in his body suddenly erupted. In an instant, the blood in Jean Mubai's body was completely unfrozen, and immediately boiled again. Then, it cooled down at the peak of boiling, and turned into the 9 serenities' cold ice. This repeated over a dozen times in a row. Jean Mubai fell into such a cycle of ice and fire. He died and came back to life, and the pain was unbearable. In the end, he couldn't even let out a scream. I said, "Before I defeat the 3 guardians today, I will not kill you. I will not go back on my words." The 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed coldly. "However, this little bit of interest must be taken first. Even if you live, it will be a life that is worse than death." He laughed loudly. "However, you still have to cherish it. Even if you live like this, you will only have this last night. Slowly savor the aftertaste." After saying that, the 9 serenities and 14 masters shook his hand, and Jean Mubai's body flew out of his hand and into the crowd of people from the 3 Holy Lands. Hai Wu Ye stepped forward and stretched out his arms to catch Jean Mubai. However, when he caught Jean Mubai, his body shook violently, as if he had been hit in the chest by a heavy iron hammer. He could not help but stagger back more than 10 steps, and with every step he took, a huge pit appeared, and the ground cracked. When he finally stabilized himself, his face was already pale, and then it turned red. With a whoosh sound, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The 9 nether 14th young master soared into the sky, his black silhouette soaring into the sky. Heart Seal Heavenly Sword Ching In Xiao, Willful Wild Saber Chu Wu Hui, All-Seeing Rakshasa Chiao Ing. Come and fight with this young master. The black figure flashed in the sky, and the entire sky was filled with thousands of shadows of the 9 serenities and 14 masters. They came and went and came and went and came and went, but the original body of the 9 serenities and 14 masters was no longer here. Ching In Xiao and the other 2 looked at each other and laughed. "Since the 14th young master is in such a good mood, the 3 of us will naturally accompany you." The 3 of them were not afraid. Their figures flashed, and they chased after the 9 serenities and 14 masters. The 9 serenities and 14 masters did not continue to ask about the 9 firmament first old master. Instead, he immediately issued a challenge. His meaning was very clear. First defeat these 3 people, then he would immediately return and kill Jean Mubai. No matter what, he would not allow Jean Mubai to live. As for the matter of the 9 firmament first old master, the 9 serenities and 14 masters could see that these people in front of him really did not know. Although Jean Mubai had used this name to attack him with vicious words, the 9 serenities and 14 masters knew that if there really was such a person, and if Jean Mubai knew about it, his words would definitely be even more unpleasant. It seemed like he could only investigate carefully after today's matter. If he still could not find any clues, he could only look for the 9 firmament first old master, and ask him what his intentions were in creating this mystery. As for Ching In Xiao, Chu Wu Hui, and the other 2, they had no other choice. The 9 serenities and 14 masters had already issued a challenge in a fit of rage. With their status, even if they knew that they were no match for Jean Mubai, even if they knew that they would definitely die, they still had to accept the challenge. Furthermore, no matter what, Jean Mubai was still a subordinate of the Holy Lands. Now that he had been abused to this extent, they had to seek justice. Whether or not they could do it was one thing, but whether or not they would do it was another matter. Otherwise, the reputation of the 3 Holy Lands would be completely destroyed today. So the 3 of them had no other choice. 4 figures flashed across the night sky like shooting stars, disappearing to an unknown place, The other experts of the 3 Holy Lands looked at the deformed Zhan Mubai in Hai Wu Ye's arms, their faces filled with rage. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters had actually humiliated the Holy Emperor in front of so many people. And it was done so wantonly in front of so many experts of the 3 Holy Lands. This was equivalent to giving the 3 Holy Lands a resounding slap in the face. If he did not leave, even if they knew that they were no match for him, they would still gang up on him. He would use his own life to redeem the dignity of the Holy Lands. Just at this time, just as everyone was feeling indignant, a wave of exclamations rang out. Everyone's eyes widened. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. An even more inconceivable thing slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Not even 10 feet in front of the group, a wall of mud suddenly rose up from the ground, swaying and swaying. From nothingness, it appeared just like that. This piece of earth seemed to suddenly have a life of its own, growing endlessly. The wall of earth slowly rose up, and the side facing everyone actually became as smooth and flat as a stone tablet. Finally, it transformed into a 5 zhang tall, 3 zhang wide wall. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, there was a new change on this wide wall of earth. Every word was written in a flamboyant style. It was as if there was an invisible ghost god calmly splashing ink on it. The top 4 words appeared one by one. Although the handwriting was light and vigorous, it looked as heavy as a mountain. It was like a bolt of lightning, heavily striking everyone's hearts. Everyone's eyes widened. 4 extremely arrogant words. Evil Monarch Lord. As expected, I caught a cold. My body temperature is not very high, only 37.8 degrees Celsius, but my head feels like it's going to split open. I forced myself to write 4,000 words, and my head is extremely heavy. Just wiping my nose, I almost used up a roll of toilet paper. I'm very depressed. I've worked hard for a month, sprinted for half a month, and in these last 2 days, I actually caught a cold. Why is it that at this crucial moment, I'm very depressed? Very depressed. I really don't have any energy left. Right now, my whole body is covered in cold sweat, and I'm lying down. The weather has changed drastically these few days. Everyone, take care of your body, don't be like me. Chapter 875. Hai Wu Ye and the rest stared at the wall that had suddenly appeared in front of their eyes, and the words that had appeared out of nowhere. All of them were completely dumbfounded. Even though they were all old monsters that had lived for hundreds of years, they had never seen such an inconceivable scene before. Furthermore, what exactly did these words mean? Evil Monarch? Just from the looks of it, it seemed like someone's name or nickname. However, they had never heard of such a person in this world before. Just what kind of person did this name represent? In this world, the word evil naturally meant evil. But from ancient times until now, who could claim to be a monarch? If there really was such a monarch, how could he be unknown and unknown? Wouldn't he have long been famous throughout the world? Right now, the name of this mysterious evil monarch had suddenly appeared here. What was the meaning of this? Could it be that the person who had just undergone the tribulation was the evil monarch? Just as everyone was muttering in their hearts, the words on the wall suddenly shone brightly, dazzling everyone's eyes. The words that had appeared on the wall actually turned into a dazzling golden color in an instant. In that instant, the words actually became exceptionally bright and dazzling in the darkness of the night. Hai Wu Ye, He Jiqiu, and the rest were completely dumbfounded. There's actually such a change? Could it be that there really are ghosts and gods in this world? Or could it be that the strength of the person who had just undergone the tribulation was too strong, and even the heavens and earth wanted to testify for him? This kind of unimaginable and peculiar change had obviously exceeded the understanding of everyone present. But what followed next was another flash of golden light. The words once again turned illusory, and the experts of the 3 Holy Lands all turned from shock to solemnity, and then to rage. Extreme rage. First, a large seal character appeared in the air and occupied the center position. Fight! Of all the evils in the world, I am the monarch. Sweeping across the world, looking down on the pugilistic world. Wherever the evil monarch goes, gods howl and ghosts cry. A laugh at the universe, a glance at the present and the past. Truly, truly arrogant words. Hijichio snorted coldly as he made his evaluation of this mysterious evil monarch. Everyone present had the same feeling in their hearts. These words were simply too arrogant. Who does he think he is? However, everyone knew that the sudden appearance of these abnormalities was obviously not for the sake of boasting about his strength. Just the strength that he had just overcome the lightning tribulation was already sufficient to explain everything. Now that these unforeseen events had appeared, there was definitely another motive behind it. Right now, he still had to wait. Sure enough, the following words confirmed everyone's guess. If the Holy Lands are unscrupulous, the evil monarch will punish them. Killing a saint with one sword is the beginning. So the mysterious assassination of Xia Dongting was actually done by this evil monarch. Punching the elusive world palace and kicking the supreme city. When I have nothing better to do, I'll use a blood sea void palm. The hypocrites of the human world shall die without a burial ground. The Holy Lands are full of scoundrels, but they shall all be sent to the afterlife. The world shall rejoice and the seas shall be at peace. Only I, the evil king, shall reign supreme in the world. How arrogant! How arrogant! What a bastard! Hijichio cursed angrily. Everyone else was also in an uproar. The words of this evil monarch were simply boundlessly arrogant. Even if your strength is shocking, can you really go against the 3 holy lands that have stood at the peak of the Xian Peak for tens of thousands of years? People of the Holy Lands, if you have the guts, wait at the south side of the city tomorrow morning. One battle to decide life and death, one battle to settle all grudges. When the sun rises in Dongfang, it shall be the time when the heads of the Holy Lands will be separated from their bodies. The evil monarch awaits your arrival, and will specially send everyone to the netherworld together. The road to the Yellow Springs is long, and the gates of life and death are open. Everyone, be careful not to miss the hour. If you do, you will inevitably become a wandering ghost. The words on the wall ended here. The experts of the 3 holy lands were so furious that their stomachs were about to explode. In this world, there was actually such an arrogant person against the 3 holy lands. Tomorrow morning, evil monarch, final battle. Hai Wu-ya slowly recited these words. Compared to the others, he was much more rational and calm. Facing this strange earthen wall, Hai Wu-ya was shocked and furious, but he also felt a deep chill in his heart. The cowardly thoughts that he had long forgotten suddenly reappeared at this moment. If the other party did not have the confidence, why would he issue such a challenge? That's right. Hijichio also calmed down amidst his rage and said slowly, "This will definitely be a tough battle. The outcome of this battle is really... The timing that this evil monarch has chosen is truly too opportune." Hai Wu-ya laughed bitterly. More than half of our experts that came to Chrysanthemum City have already been dispersed. It can be said that our strength is at its weakest right now. But he just had to choose such a critical moment. This makes this old man feel that the situation is not good. It's not just not good, it's extremely bad. Hijichio said solemnly. The previous incident caused the reinforcements from the misty illusory manor to fall out with each other and leave, becoming enemies with our side. Our weapons were also lost at that time. Now, Brother Jean has also been attacked by the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, and even you, Brother Hai, have suffered some internal injuries. The 3 Guardians that we've been relying on have also been challenged by the 9 Nether 14th Young Master. And now, this mysterious evil monarch with unfathomable strength has suddenly suggested a decisive battle. He Ji-chyo let out a long sigh and said, "And we still do not know who this evil monarch is. In fact, we have not even heard of him before this. This battle is really too strange. If he is really the person who went through the tribulation earlier, doesn't that mean that we do not have much time left?" Everyone is clear about this point. However, this battle is inevitable. Hai Wu-ya laughed bitterly. Just like how the three guardians had no choice but to accept the challenge from the 9 serenities and 14 masters, we also cannot reject the evil monarch's challenge this time. For the sake of the Holy Land's 10,000 years of reputation, we must not retreat. We would rather die in battle than cower. He Ji-chyo's eyes gazed into the distant night sky as he solemnly said, "Leave 2 people behind to take care of Brother Jean. The rest of you, let's go together." Hai Wu-ya said, "This opponent may be extremely strong, but he may not be the senior who went through the tribulation earlier. Furthermore, there is a limit to a person's strength, and he is only one person. In terms of the number of experts, he will not be able to compare to our 3 holy lands. This battle may not be completely without a chance of victory. If we can gang up on him, the battle tactics that we used against the 9 serenities and 14 masters may be used today." He Ji-chyo was stunned for a moment before nodding his head slowly. "I will go as well," a weak voice said. The 2 of them turned around and saw that the one who spoke was actually Jean Mubai. When the 2 of them saw Jean Mubai's current appearance, they could not help but be shocked. Hai Wu-ya's body even began to tremble slightly. Right now, Jean Mubai's appearance could be said to be extremely pitiful. The left half of his body was burning hot, while the right half was covered in a layer of frost. From his face all the way to his feet, it was a situation where both ice and fire were symmetrical. And in just an hour, the right half of his body was burning hot, while the left half was freezing cold, and this cycle repeated itself. The methods of the 9 serenities and 14 masters were truly vicious to the extreme. This was his unique method. The 9 serenities blazing flames and 9 serenities frigid winds were used on Jean Mubai's body at the same time. Every hour it would be changed. This had a name, yin-yang refining soul. This kind of yin-yang refining soul could last for a full day and a night. In this one day and night, the person being tortured would feel as if they were going back and forth in the 18 levels of hell. This was publicly acknowledged as the most cruel punishment in the world. Although it was impossible to beg for life, it was also impossible to beg for death. When the 9 serenities and 14 masters had released him previously, it was not because they wanted to let Jean Mubai off, but because they wanted to torture and ravage him. Under such extreme pain, Jean Mubai had to endure great pain with every word he said. In this state, "I won't be able to hold on until tomorrow." Jean Mubai trembled and said hatefully. Rather than being toyed to death by the strange methods of the 9 serenities and 14 masters, I would rather fight it out with that evil monarch. Perhaps I can still be of some use. Brothers, I am already powerless for the battle tomorrow morning, but you have to help me. Help me activate the blood-bursting body-splitting technique. Let me die a more dignified death. Blood-bursting body-splitting technique. Hai Wu-ya and He Ji-chyo felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Brother Jean, you clearly know that you only need to endure for a day and night, and your cultivation will have a chance to recover. Why do you have to resort to such a method? Jean Mubai laughed bitterly. This time, I have encountered so many things. Everyone has seen it with their own eyes. Brothers, do you think that I, Jean Mubai, still have the face to continue living? Not to mention the death threat from the 9 serenities and 14 masters, just the thickness of my face alone. Speaking up to here, he suddenly roared. I, Jean Mubai, am really living a life worse than death. Jean Mubai's profound Xian cultivation had long been unable to be used. This sentence was completely shouted out with his own strength. His voice was hoarse, but it was filled with despair and humiliation. Jean Mubai's heart was already filled with the desire to die. Hai Wu Ye and He Ji Qiu stood there blankly, their hearts as heavy as lead. They looked at each other, unable to say a word. The night quietly slipped away in the hazy dawn. The experts of the three Holy Lands, led by He Ji Qiu and Hai Wu Ye, quietly walked out of Chrysanthemum City's south gate. There was a soft couch in the middle of this group of people. Jean Mubai sat on it with his back straight. The left side of his face was red, and the right side was deathly pale. His body was trembling uncontrollably, and the muscles all over his body were also convulsing inch by inch. But Jean Mubai's hair was combed neatly, and his clothes were also spotless. His eyes were filled with killing intent and determination. Today's fever reached 38.5 degrees Celsius and a splitting headache. The 99 cold granule and white and black were both taken twice, but it didn't have any effect at all. Yesterday it was more than 37 degrees Celsius, but today it was even higher. There's no other way, I'll start an infusion this afternoon. Now sitting in front of the computer and writing, I feel extremely uncomfortable. My head hurts and my temples are throbbing. My head is heavy like a lead weight, and I really want to smash the keyboard and fall asleep. But I've already slept for nearly 15 hours today, sigh. I'm working hard on the second update, but I don't know if I can send it before midnight. What I'm doing is nothing more than persevering. I hope my brothers and sisters can give me the motivation to persevere. Chapter 876. The 3 guardians and the 9 serenities and 14 masters had already gone somewhere to fight. He Ji Qiu only left a letter for them. Finally, they each sent a message to the Holy Land. At the end of the message to Hermitage, Jean Mubai dictated this sentence. The glory of the Holy Land, since ancient times, has never been blasphemed by anyone. I, Jean, will defend this glory with my life. After 1,000 years of reunion, there will be parting in the end. Mubai will bid farewell today. The soft couch swayed. Jean Mubai closed his eyes slightly. He actually felt all kinds of scenes of his life flashing past his eyes. It was said that when a person was about to die, they would see the scenes of their life as if time was flowing backwards. It seemed like the next moment might be the end of his life. Jean Mubai was not a legitimate son of the Jean family. He was the son of a concubine. When he was young, he suffered the disdain of countless people. Fortunately, his talent was extremely high, and he endured it all the way. When he was 18 years old, he finally came out on top in the family martial arts competition, shocking everyone with a single brilliant feat. Jean Mubai, who rose to fame, received the attention of the elders of the family, but also attracted the hostility of the direct descendants of the Jean family. The continuous persecution caused his parents to die, and he suffered great humiliation. He endured the humiliation and luckily escaped the Jean family. After that, he met a master by chance and trained hard day and night. 20 years later, Jean Mubai, who had reached the 3rd level of Xinxian, came back to the Jean family to take revenge and kill all those who had persecuted him in the past. Not a single one was spared. Thinking of this, Jean Mubai, in the extreme torture of the yin-yang soul refining technique, still revealed a trace of a happy smile. He thought about how the culprit who had destroyed his family had trembled under his hands, and how his blood had flowed out bit by bit. He thought about how the woman he doted on the most was moaning in pain under his body. That fair skin, the tears on that beautiful face that had been distorted. In the end, he had severed her neck with a single slash, and the look of disbelief in her eyes, that kind of joy. At that moment, Jean Mubai almost forgot all the pain he was suffering. That period of time was the most exhilarating period of his life. Everyone in the Jean family kept quiet out of fear. Jean Mubai relied on his superhuman strength and cruel methods to obtain absolute authority, becoming the youngest family head in the history of the Jean family. After that, Jean Moubai led the Jean family to fight in the pugilistic world, growing stronger step by step, allowing the Jean family to smoothly become a first-rate family at that time. And at this time, he received an invitation from Hermitage, summoning him to enter Hermitage to cultivate. With the support of the three Holy Lands, the Jean family's development became faster and faster. In the past few hundred years, the Jean family had long become a powerful force. As for Jean Moubai himself, he became a venerable, then a saint, then a holy emperor. From a hermitage, he became a member of the Heaven Saint Palace. A lifetime of glory, a lifetime of brilliance, a lifetime of obstinacy. Perhaps there were some things that he had done wrong, but so what? This world was like this, the strong preyed on the weak. There was nothing more to say. In this life there were gains and no losses. It was enough. Jean Moubai smiled in pain. He half lay on the soft couch, letting the couch carry him as he walked step by step towards the end of his life. He did not think about the battle this time. He only thought about his life again and again in his heart. Just like recently, killing the entire Churn family. Was he wrong? No, he was wrong. He could only blame the Chun family's foundation for being too weak. And such a weak family actually saw the shameful deeds of the Holy Emperor. If that wasn't death, then what was it? A pity, the war for seizing the heavens. I've dreamed of the war for seizing the heavens for hundreds of years. This is the battle of heroes in the history of mankind, the ultimate battle that will go down in history for tens of thousands of years. I, Jean Moubai, won't be able to make it in time. Perhaps this is the only and biggest regret in my life. 80 li south of the city, on a small mountain. After passing this small mountain, there was a huge mountain ahead. In front of the mountain, there was a green bamboo forest, swaying gently in the wind. In front of the bamboo forest, there was a huge clearing. In the center of the clearing, there was a huge stone tablet that was 10 zhang tall. On it was carved, "The burial ground of 35 experts from the 3 Holy Lands. Your illustrious name will live on forever." Almost at the same time, everyone stopped in their tracks, their eyes spitting out thick flames of anger. The number of people who came this time was exactly 35. Looks like the other party was very clear about their whereabouts. In fact, they even knew that Jean Moubai would definitely come. The bamboo forest was silent and there was no one in sight. The other party still hasn't come? He Ji-Chio laughed coldly and said, "This stone tablet is really laughable." He laughed loudly and leaped out. He did not touch the words on the stone tablet, but used his Xian Qi to carve a few words on the back of the tablet. "The burial ground of the evil monarch." After thinking for a while, he added another small line of words. "The evil monarch, shameless to the extreme. Not knowing his own limits, he had the guts to challenge the glorious Holy Lands. He only had crafty tricks, but no real strength. In the end, he was defeated and died, becoming the laughingstock of the ages." After he finished carving, He Ji-Chio roared and circulated his Xian Qi again. With a twist of his hands, the huge stone tablet actually turned around, and the original back became the front. "Haha, not bad, the laughingstock of the ages, the laughingstock of the ages, the evil monarch. Brother He, the words you wrote are really satisfying. But why didn't you erase the original words? Instead, you spent more effort to turn it around?" Hai Wuya laughed. The other experts from the 3 Holy Lands also felt their spirits lift, and they all cheered. He Ji-Chio laughed lightly. "Today's battle is a battle of life and death. At the end of this battle, only one side will be able to leave this place alive. By doing this, I mean that the moment the living side leaves, it will be the moment their names are erased from this stone tablet. If we erase those words now, it will seem like we don't have the confidence to win. Let's just leave it like this, and it won't be too late to erase it after we've collected their corpses." "Not bad, not bad. Brother He's words are correct. Hai Wu Ye laughed heartily. There is no reason for us to lose this battle. Let that evil monarch taste the bitter fruit of his own making. The experts of the 3 Holy Lands roared in agreement, their morale soaring. The last bit of darkness in the sky finally disappeared completely. Dongfang's eyes were already completely white. The light of dawn was clearly about to appear. Right now it was already sunrise over Dongfang. This was the time that the evil monarch had set, but the people of the 3 Holy Lands were also looking forward to this moment. After this moment, all the mysteries would be solved. The mysterious enemy that had been hiding all this time would finally reveal his true face. Whether that mysterious enemy was a frighteningly strong expert who had passed the tribulation, or someone else, everything would be settled. Therefore, they were all waiting quietly. Every single one of these people was a veteran who had been through hundreds of battles. Not a single one of them wasn't an old fox that couldn't be any more old. They didn't have the slightest bit of impatience on their faces, and there was only a calm expression on their faces. Regardless of life or death, they had already seen through it long ago. Even the Zhan Mubai, who had always been in extreme pain, had a calm expression on his face when the sun was about to rise. Although that calmness looked so comical on his half-red, half-green face, but it also displayed the unyielding determination of this holy Emperor Zhan. Pairs of sharp, eagle-like eyes stared silently at the bamboo forest in front of them. No one looked in the other 3 directions, because there was no need. The light of dawn descended upon the land, and Dongfang was finally bright. The rustling of footsteps rang out, neat and quick. From the left and right, 2 groups of people walked over at the same time. Fast and light, like 2 wisps of green smoke, they swept across the land and arrived in front of the bamboo forest in an instant. Each group had 36 people, and the 2 groups had a total of 72 people. They walked over in such an orderly manner, their eyes looking straight ahead, displaying the strict discipline of an army. Hai Wu Ye and He Zhiqiu looked at these 72 people, and their faces slowly darkened. They didn't need to look at each other's faces to know the incomparable shock in each other's hearts. So the other party wasn't just one person, and their strength was also quite impressive. Furthermore, the people who came were all experts, top-notch experts. Amongst these 72 people, the weakest had reached the 3rd level of the Venerable Realm. There were 19 4th-level Venerables, 31 1st-level Saints, and almost 20 2nd-level Saints. As for the 2 leaders, they were actually 3rd-level Saints. Just these 72 people were already an extremely impressive and enormous force. In the current world, there was actually such a force. How did they hide from the eyes and ears of the 3 Holy Lands? In fact, they had even hidden it from the entire world. This kind of strength was not something that could be produced in a year or 2. This kind of strength required a long period of accumulation, at least 200 to 300 years to create such a force. How did they do it? In an instant, all the experts from the 3 Holy Lands looked at each other in dismay. They were all so shocked that they couldn't speak. If there was only one opponent, even if that person's strength was extremely high, even if that person was above the 9 serenities and 14 masters, or that peerless expert who had passed the lightning tribulation, they might not be as shocked as they were now. Since when did this world have so many peak experts? What kind of force did these people belong to? Why did it seem like they had suddenly fallen from the sky, and the 3 Holy Lands actually had no idea? How was this possible? What was going on? Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the 72 experts neared, and with a low command, they neatly formed into 2 triangular formations, spreading out like the wings of a goose. Everyone stood respectfully, leaving a relatively wide path in the middle. As if they were waiting for something. The position that they had opened up was also the core position. Could it be that the main character had not arrived yet? Hai Wu Ye and He Zhiqiu looked at each other, both feeling that their palms were sweating. the heaviness and nervousness in their hearts were something that even with their thousands of years of experience, they could not control. The sound of orderly footsteps rang out once more, and in the distance, 8 teams appeared at almost the same time. There were about 30 people in each team, and they were flying rapidly towards the direction where the 2 sides were facing each other. Although those 8 teams were advancing at high speed, they still maintained an unusually orderly formation, meticulous and not the slightest bit disorderly. Like 8 sharp arrows, they shot towards this place at high speed. In a flash, they had already arrived. The person in the lead lightly shouted, "Formation!" Close to 300 people changed their formation in a dazzling manner, perfectly merging with the original 2 triangular formations. The formation also transformed into 2 large triangular formations. It was still in the shape of a goose's wing. The 2 people in the lead, one dressed in black like ink, the other in white like snow. Grassland Eagle God Solitary Eagle, Hurricane Sword God Feng Wan Yun. But now, these 2 people had already advanced to the peak of 4th level saints, only a step away from the Holy Emperor's level. As for the 8 teams that they had brought with them, each of their cultivations were on par with the previous 2 teams. Including the leaders, there were a total of 308 people. Looking at them one by one, Hai Wu Ye and He Jiqiu were on the verge of collapse. All of them were experts above the venerable level. Among them, there were 2 4th-level saints, 6 3rd-level saints, 92nd-level saints, 171st-level saint, 33 4th-level venerables, 7 3rd-level venerables. This was simply unbelievable. Could it be that we're in the worst nightmare? Even the 3 Holy Lands did not have so many experts with such average strength. This terrifying strength was enough to sweep through the entire Xian continent, and even if the Heaven Saint Palace did not make a move, this strength was enough to sweep through the 3 Holy Lands. The degree of threat it posed had already surpassed the strange races. After all of the Holy Emperor's level experts belonged to the Heaven Saint Palace. Since when did such a force appear in this world? The experts of the Holy Lands all felt a little dazed. These people were still waiting for the arrival of their leader. In other words, all of these people were under the control of one person. It was a force that belonged to one person. This kind of understanding caused the Holy Emperor's saints of the 3 Holy Lands to feel a chill down their spines. This person was so patient, with such strength. The 3 Holy Lands were in danger. Who were they waiting for? No matter who it was definitely an unparalleled hero. Following a light laugh, 2 people suddenly appeared in the green bamboo forest. A man and a woman, a pair of immortal lovers. Both of them were dressed in clothes whiter than snow. The man was handsome and suave, like a jade tree in the wind, while the woman was peerless in her generation, like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Just like that, the 2 of them walked out from the green bamboo forest, step by step. Walking on the path that the 2 teams had specially left open, their light robes fluttering in the wind, leisurely and carefree. Like a pair of golden boy and jade girl, walking in the green. When the over 300 experts on both sides saw these 2 people, their faces revealed a look of respect. It was as if they had seen the gods in their hearts. Suddenly, Jean Mubai, who was sitting on the soft couch, had a look of shock on his face. As if he had seen a ghost, he cried out, "June Moxie! That's June Moxie! Finally done, we'll continue tomorrow. I'm going to sleep, I just drank 2 packets of medicine, I'm going to bed to wipe away my sweat, later on, I'll issue a ticket request for March, which contains next month's update plan. I hope everyone can take a look, and also here, I'll reserve everyone's guaranteed monthly tickets for next month." Chapter 877. The experts of the 3 Holy Lands all gasped in shock, because the 2 people who had walked out from the bamboo forest had really shocked them to the point that they couldn't speak. In the impression of the 3 Holy Lands, That man and woman had once been the biggest thorn in their side, a thorn in their flesh, a scourge that must be eradicated, must be eliminated as soon as possible. There was even a period of time when the three Holy Lands had completely let go of these two scourges. There was no other reason, but the two people who could pose the greatest threat to them had already been confirmed dead. One had died under the siege of 3 saints, perishing together with 3 other saints. The other had died in the Tian Fa forest base camp, and was even killed by the Holy Emperor Jean Mubai's personal sneak attack. During that time, he had even spared the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. In short, these two people had already become dead people, and had become the past. Calculating it, the 3 Holy Lands seemed to have spent close to 3 months in peace. But right now, at this moment, it was as if the entire world had been turned upside down. The great enemy that they thought had already become the past, a memory, and a history had actually come back to life. He was standing right in front of them, alive and well, and his cultivation had improved greatly. How could Jean Mubai not be shocked? How could he not be shocked? He looked at that familiar young face that flashed in front of him again, and it was as if he had been hit in the head by a heavy stick, causing him to feel dizzy. Even the calmness that he had forced himself to pretend to be had completely vanished in an instant, disappearing without a trace. Jean Mubai, Holy Emperor Jean, are you very surprised? Look at that green and red old face of yours. Although it's a rather unexpected matter, it shouldn't be to this extent, right? You're an expert of the Holy Emperor, a high and mighty existence, Your performance is too out of control. Jun Moxie's white robes fluttered in the wind as he stepped out from the crowd. His mouth was filled with ridicule, but the corners of his mouth were curled up in a cold smile, and his eyes were filled with a cold glint. Jun Moxie, could it be that you're that evil monarch? Hai Wuya sucked in a deep breath and stepped forward, blocking in front of Jean Mubai. He could only laugh bitterly in his heart. At this moment, he only wanted to say, "What a blunder!" Compared to this young man in front of him, even the legendary free and natural physique was nothing. If a person with the free and natural physique could cause the holy emperors to fight over him until their heads bled, then wouldn't this person be able to cause all the other experts to throw their lives away? You must be joking. Jun Moxie smiled faintly. Are you from the illusory ocean of blood? The Holy Emperor of the Boundless Sea? That's right, it's me. Hai Wuya looked at him and smiled faintly. Jun Moxie, this old man would like to ask, are you already at the Holy Emperor realm now? Jun Moxie flicked his sleeves and smiled casually. This young master's luck has always been pretty good. I don't know how I managed to reach my current realm, but it's mostly just luck. Compared to Senior's tireless and bitter cultivation, this young master can only say that I'm ashamed. These words were said politely and humbly. But to have such a shocking cultivation at such a young age, how could it be luck? Ashamed? The ones who should be ashamed are us old fellows. Compared to young Master Jun's cultivation speed, these old fellows are really too ashamed to show their faces. Hai Wuya laughed bitterly and said, according to this old man's knowledge, young Master Jun has only just turned 18, right? An 18-year-old holy emperor, a person who has never existed in history. In front of young Master Jun's achievements, from ancient times until now, countless outstanding figures have lost their splendor. This kind of achievement is not only unprecedented, it's also unparalleled. I believe that even if the 9 Nether First young master was here, he would also be ashamed of his own inferiority. Jun Moxie was silent for a while and said, Holy Emperor of the Boundless Sea is praising me too much. This young master's personal achievements may not be ordinary, but compared to the Holy Lands, it's still far from it. The 3 Holy Lands are truly filled with talents, and their strength is unparalleled. This young master had to flee for his life from the Holy Lands several times, narrowly escaping death several times. I'm very familiar with the prowess of the Holy Lands, and I'm filled with admiration for them, and will never forget them. Everything that happened here is truly a miscalculation on the side of the Holy Land. Sowing enmity with young master for no reason is the biggest mistake that the three Holy Lands have made in the past 10,000 years. Hai Wu Ye let out a long sigh, his expression filled with endless regret. Shaking his head, he said sadly, "If I had the chance to do it all over again, this old man would definitely try his best to prevent us from becoming enemies with a talent like young master. This old man would also do his best, no matter the cost, to be on good terms with young master. Whether it was the tone or the tone of his words, they were all incomparably sincere. Anyone who heard it would be able to tell. These words were truly from the bottom of his heart." June Moxie said quietly, "It's a pity, in the affairs of the world, there is no such thing as if. The so-called if is just a kind of useless imagination." "That's right, young master's words are extremely true." Hai Wu Ye raised his head solemnly and said, "This old man has lived in seclusion in the Heaven Saint Palace for 300 years, and never thought that there would be such an outstanding person like young master in this world. In the path of Xian cultivation, there has always been no seniority, and those who have reached the peak are the teachers. Young master may be young, but your cultivation is comparable to this old man's. But this old man has lived for hundreds of years, so today, I will put aside my pride and ask you a question." Before Hai Wu Ye finished speaking, he actually took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Then, he slowly opened them again, as if using all the strength in his body, and said word by word, "If the three Holy Lands can apologize to young master and pay a corresponding price, I wonder if young master is willing to come to an understanding with the Holy Lands, to bury the hatchet and end this senseless slaughter? Between our two sides, is there still any room for reconciliation?" Hai Wu Ye said in a low voice. With his status, saying these words was already tantamount to humbling himself. "Is there still any room for reconciliation?" June Moxie silently repeated these words. Suddenly, a faint smile appeared on his face. This kind of smile was very mocking, with a faint sense of mockery. With a hint of mockery in his voice, he slowly said, "Senior Hai, I believe that you are not saying these words because you are afraid of death. On the contrary, just based on the fact that you can say these words, it is worthy of the word respect. That's because you're saying such words from the bottom of your heart because of the war for seizing the heavens. Although you did not say it clearly, but I understand. And also respect." June Moxie said sincerely, "It's just that, it's a pity, it's all too late. I believe old Hai understands that from the start. I, June Moxie, never had any intention of taking the initiative to become enemies with the three Holy Lands. I really did not think about it at all. Just a year ago, I did not even know that the so-called peak of the three Holy Lands actually existed in this world. But today, at this very moment, I can no longer turn back." June Moxie sighed and said in a low voice, "Now that time has changed, it is no longer you guys who want to target me, but I will not let you guys off. Today's decisive battle is just the beginning. There are no absolutes in this world. There are no grudges in this world that cannot be let go." Hai Wu Ye said earnestly. June Moxie's understanding caused this holy emperor of the illusory blood sea to feel a myriad of emotions, and he was even a little touched. He took a step forward and said passionately, "Our Heaven Saint Palace can make the decision. No matter what grudges there are, we can let go of everything, and focus on the war for seizing the heavens. Put the lives of the world first. If you guys had stopped this matter half a year ago, or even 3 months ago, and let both sides come to an understanding, perhaps it would really be the best of both worlds. Unfortunately, it is not possible now. As the saying goes, things have changed, and time has changed. This matter, your Heaven Saint Palace is no longer able to make the decision." June Moxie smiled and said, "The one who can make the decision now, the one who has the initiative, is no longer the three Holy Lands, but me. And only me, that's all. Also, Old High, if I really listen to you, I'm afraid that within half a year, the 300 people here will all turn into corpses. There will be no exceptions. I believe you can understand what I'm saying. What you guys want is destruction, and what I want now is the same as all of you. Hai Wuya sighed and wanted to say more, but he heard a voice beside him say, June Moxie, you're really too arrogant. You've just achieved success, and you're already speaking so incoherently? Let me tell you, no matter what achievements you have now, or what forces you have, in front of the three Holy Lands, there is only death for you. In this world, no one can protect you. The one who spoke was Jean Mubai. Brother Jean. Hai Wuya had never imagined that Jean Mubai would jump out at this moment, and he couldn't help but call out in a low voice. Brother Jean's words may be inappropriate, but the logic is not wrong. Brother Hai, our side and June Moxie's side really have no way to turn things around, and we're already in a situation where we won't rest until one side is dead. He Ji Chio sighed and said, The June family has already been forced into a corner by us, and the Tian Fa forest is no longer the same because of us. There are also several lives involved, and a debt of blood can only be settled with blood. Even this June Moxie, although he was lucky enough to survive, the process was also very dangerous. And this is only the other side's losses. As for the Holy Land's losses, we've already lost over 1,000 lives. How are we going to settle this debt? He Ji Chio sighed heavily and said, Among the 1,000 people sacrificed, the lowest cultivation is at least at the level of a superior supreme. Furthermore, there's also the King of Hermitage, Missouri Wudao's younger brother, Mo Xiao Yao. I believe that even if the Heaven Saint Palace comes forward to mediate, this hatred is not hard to resolve. So today we can only fight. June Moxie grinned. His teeth were snow-white like an ancient beast baring its fangs. Chapter 878. Hai Wuya smiled bitterly and said, Last time in the Tian Fa forest, he was only a third-level venerable. Although he still shocked us, his strength was not enough to enter our eyes. Now, he already has the strength to stand on equal footing with us. It's only been 2 months. My old friends, do you really not understand what this means? He Ji Chio said expressionlessly, No matter how much of a genius he is still an enemy. Although there is nothing we can do about this, we can only face it. As for geniuses, we must do our best to eliminate them before we have the ability to control them. Only then will we not cause more trouble. Time, fate, the will of the heavens plays tricks on us, we can only adapt to it. Hai Wuya sighed and turned to look at June Moxie, saying solemnly, Young Master June, regarding today's result, this old man is truly regretful. Looks like today's battle is unavoidable. This old man has something in his heart that cannot be said without saying it, so I will say it first, please speak. June Moxie nodded lightly. Da Xiao still had some respect for this old man in front of him. In this battle, we will use all means to destroy young Master, no matter the cost. If an enemy like young Master is allowed to live in this world, it will be enough to make anyone unable to eat or sleep in peace. To the 3 Holy Lands it will be like the end of the world. Hai Wuya said bitterly, To personally destroy a genius who keeps on creating miracles, such a despicable act was actually done by this old man. This really makes this old man feel sad. Likewise, what old Hai said is also what I wanted to say. June Moxie said calmly, Just like Senior Hai, this young master will also use all his strength, using all means to obtain the final victory of this battle. This is a decisive battle. There is no need to explain this point. Life and death are up to fate, riches and honor are up to the heavens. He laughed and said, Old Hai's frankness makes this young master very happy. In the Holy Lands there are many despicable and treacherous people, but there are also a few heroes. Even though we are enemies, this young master will not hide his admiration and admiration. There are many iron-blooded heroes in the Holy Lands. Oh, to be able to cause young master to feel admiration and admiration, even if I have to go to the netherworld today, my heart will be greatly comforted. I wonder who the other people are? Hai Wu Ye asked with interest. The heavens have no justice, the earth has no justice, Ning Wuqing has no mercy. Ning Wuqing is one of them. There's also the unfettered venerable Mo Xiaoyao. He's also a worthy opponent. A trace of nostalgia appeared on Jun Moxie's face as he said, but this young master still doesn't understand. There are many heroes in the Holy Land. Why is it that once they enter the Holy Land, too many people lose their original perseverance and become obsessed with the interests of the Holy Land? Why is it that the original right and wrong in their hearts become confused, and they can't control themselves? Jun Moxie's words carried a hint of mockery and even a hint of sarcasm. It was also an unintentional remark. But in Hai Wu Ye's heart, these words were like a sudden clap of thunder. Hai Wu Ye's originally tall and straight body suddenly trembled, and his expression changed greatly. He actually took a step back. Jun Moxie's unintentional remark actually made him understand one thing. For many years, a hazy barrier had finally been broken at this moment. All the experts that the Holy Land recruited who were above the level of supreme martial artist were continuously heading towards the Holy Land. But when everyone arrived at the Holy Land, they made this person feel the huge gap between them and the others in the Holy Land. From the body, from the heart, from the spirit, all aspects of the person were continuously dealt heavy blows, until this person's originally great pride in the secular world was slowly erased, little by little turning into the past, a laughing stock, and then starting all over again from the Holy Land. This series of methods was extremely vicious, but it had a nice-sounding name: Nirvana Rebirth, Breaking and Succeeding. Thus, many people woke up from that heavy blow and once again entered into a frenzied state of cultivation, working hard to raise their own strength. Thus, the strength of the Holy Land grew rapidly step by step. But there were even more people who were directly disheartened by the blow and directly exposed their most original nature. A great hero that was originally renowned in the secular world would actually lose all confidence, pride, and dignity in the Holy Land, and become a lowly person like a ruffian every year. No matter what level, there would always be such people who would appear and then be eliminated, demoted to the outer forces of the three Holy Lands. From a certain perspective, this force was the cannon fodder of the three Holy Lands, a hired thug. Nirvana Rebirth, Breaking and Succeeding, of course, was necessary, and it was extremely effective. Only by passing through this stage could one truly touch the level of a true expert. It could be said that this stage was extremely necessary, and because of this, in these thousands of years, no one had ever doubted it. But this method was not the only one, because there were countless other gentle methods that could also achieve this goal. This kind of method was even more destructive to a person. Becoming a tycoon was very easy. But to knock this tycoon from the peak of success into the abyss, and then slowly climb back up, in this world there were not many people who could do it. Even if no arrangements were made, among those newcomers who had just entered, which one of them was a mediocre person, as long as they saw the profound Xian techniques of the seniors here, as long as they had the heart, how could they not know to work hard? But the greatest benefit of this method was not the so-called Nirvana Rebirth, Breaking and Succeeding, but to completely shatter the original confidence and pride of these people, crushing their spirit, leaving a permanent mark of the three Holy Lands in the depths of their souls. Everything was done with the interests of the Holy Lands as the most important. Furthermore, there was also the biggest excuse in the world, which was also supported by the highest level of righteousness. For the sake of the world, for the future of mankind, the war for seizing the heavens. Therefore, everyone was willing and had no regrets. Without pride and confidence, it was equivalent to pulling out the backbone of these people and cutting off their path of retreat. After that, wouldn't they still be able to need them however they wanted? So those geniuses of the pugilistic world, peerless experts, the moment they entered the legendary Holy Lands, it was equivalent to a bunch of walking corpses that could only talk. Thinking about it, Hai Wu Ye actually felt his hair stand on end, and a sense of fear arose in his heart. If this was really the goal, then this was too scary. If the legendary Three Holy Lands, the highest realm of Xian continent's Xian techniques, was directly a place where humanity was completely obliterated, a place of tragedy, what they were after was only the interests of the Three Holy Lands. Then, what were the interests of the Three Holy Lands? Could it be that there was a huge conspiracy behind all of this? Or Hai Wu Ye stood there in a daze, completely not hearing what He Ji Qiu was saying beside him. It was just that he had been thinking about this matter, and in this instant there was only endless confusion in his heart. Whether it was a moment or a long time, Hai Wu Ye only felt someone pushing him, and he raised his head in shock, only to see He Ji Qiu standing in front of him. He couldn't help but ask blankly, "What is it?" He Ji Qiu looked at him deeply, a complicated expression in his eyes. "Brother Hai, the final battle is imminent. No matter what it is, we'll talk about it after everyone returns here. There are still over 30 brothers. Whether they live or die, this burden is all on the shoulders of the two of us." Hai Wu Ye's heart shook, and he instantly came to his senses. He hurriedly agreed, but a thought rose in his heart. If this old man is lucky enough to survive, I'll definitely investigate this matter thoroughly. The legendary Three Holy Lands definitely could not become someone's tool. On the other side, Jun Moxie had a bright smile on his face as he turned his head and said something to Mei Shuyan. Mei Shuyan's expression was extremely solemn, and she nodded her head repeatedly. "Young Master Jun, since today is the final battle, then how should we fight? Since young Master calls yourself the evil monarch and has led everyone here, I'm sure you already have a plan. Young Master, please state your plan." He Ji Qiu raised his voice and said. In the time that he was speaking, an exceptionally desolate atmosphere had already gathered in the air. He Ji Qiu's expression had also become exceptionally bleak, and the once gentle spring wind in the sky had also instantly turned cold and forlorn. The vast world was filled with a sense of loss. 10,000-ly sorrowful autumn. This was He Ji Qiu's signature move. Before the battle had even begun, he had already fully unleashed his unique domain. Although both sides had not truly entered a state of battle, the current him was already fully focused on preparing for battle, ready to strike at any moment. Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan exchanged a look. Mei Shuyan said softly, "Do you intend to fight a chaotic battle, or a continuous battle? Do you want to end the battle quickly, or—" Jun Moxie chuckled and said, "Our overall strength far surpasses the other side. Using numbers to overwhelm us is the correct way. However, Luo Yun and the rest have borrowed the power of the spirit stones and celestial milk to forcefully raise their strength. Right now, their cultivation is unavoidably unstable. Today's battle is an extremely good opportunity to sharpen their blades. Let these people in front of us help us sharpen our blades. Thus, a chaotic battle is not advisable. Even if it is to be a chaotic battle, it will only happen at the last moment. Furthermore, if it is a chaotic battle, those few holy emperors will definitely cause a terrifying amount of damage to our low-level forces in order to cover everyone's escape. This is something that you and I cannot endure, and are even more unwilling to endure." "Oh? Then you intend to fight one-on-one?" Mei Shuyan furrowed her brows and said, however, although the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer have forcefully raised their strength to this level, they are still lacking in high-level battle experience. If it is a one-on-one battle, it is inevitable that there will be casualties. Not only will it not achieve the effect of sharpening our blades, it will instead harm our strength. If we set it as a battle of gentlemen, then it will not be the purpose of this battle. Regarding this, I have my own ways. Jun Moxie winked and said, "Just wait and see." After saying that, Jun Moxie turned to He Ji Chio and said, "Holy Emperor He, in today's battle, we have the advantage in numbers. If we win with numbers, it will be an unfair victory. Even if everyone dies, we will not be satisfied in our hearts." Thus, this young master has considered for a while, and suggested a method of battle. Chapter 879. I wonder what method it is. There was a hint of admiration in He Ji Chio's eyes. He had never interacted with Jun Moxie before, so he didn't understand what kind of person this youth was. Right now, he saw Jun Moxie's gentle and refined manner. His every word and action was elegant and natural. Furthermore, he was young and accomplished, but he didn't have the arrogance of an ordinary person. There was a hint of admiration in his heart. So, just from the bottom of his heart, he didn't reject this handsome youth, Jun Moxie. In fact, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Such a youth is truly a dragon among men." But the world makes fools of people, and both sides have to stand in an awkward position of being enemies. It really made one sigh. If the great holy emperor he knew that this guy in front of him was scheming against him, and it was an extremely vicious and despicable scheme. He Ji Chio probably wouldn't even need to wait for the final battle. He would just spit out a mouthful of blood and die from anger on the spot. Why would a guy like Jun Moxie, who was full of evil tricks, suggest a strategy that was disadvantageous to him? Furthermore, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer team was the team that he had poured the most effort into, and it was also the team that he had the deepest feelings for. It was the trump card and symbol of the Jun family. He would not allow this team to suffer any losses. The Holy Lands have 35 people participating in today's battle, from venerables to Holy Emperor. There are experts of all levels. This young master thinks that if it's a one-on-one battle, it's too much of a waste of time. I'll let Saint Emperor He and Saint Emperor Hai discuss it, and let the different levels form different battle matchups. And on my side, I will also send out a corresponding level of battle strength. Venerables against venerables, saints against saints, Holy Emperor against Holy Emperor. This will be a fair battle. Life and death will not matter, until one side is completely defeated. Start with the living, end with the dead. What does Holy Emperor He think? Jun Moxie smiled, but the words that came out of his mouth were like needles. Start with the living, end with the dead. This was an extremely cruel decision. At the same time, it also gave He Ji Chio enormous pressure, because with the 3 Holy Lands' current lineup, they could not afford to lose these 30 people. Once it was lost, it would lead to defeat in the war for seizing the heavens. At the same time, He Ji Chio let out a huge sigh of relief in his heart. The method proposed by the other party was practically tailor-made for the 3 Holy Lands. Such a method of battle was absolutely advantageous to the experts of the 3 Holy Lands. In fact, there was no way they would lose. This was because the experts dispatched by the 3 sacred lands, especially those of the same level and belonged to the same sacred land, had been together for hundreds of years. Their tacit understanding had clearly reached the point where they could faintly communicate with each other. If they were to join hands and attack together, their power would increase by more than 1-fold. When the Holy Land sent people out, they were all sent out in pairs. On the other hand, Jun Moxie's battle strength seemed to be extremely high, but it was obvious that he had used some special method to forcefully increase his own cultivation. Although his strength was high, his corresponding cultivation and mental state were inevitably insufficient. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Jun Moxie's choice of battle method was no different from seeking death. Good. Young Master Jun is a straightforward person, it's settled then. He Ji Chio did not turn around, because the strength of the experts on his side had long been recorded in his mind. He quickly calculated and said, "We have a total of 35 people on our side, of which 3 are 4th level venerables, 5 1st level saints, 7 2nd level saints, 8 3rd level saints, 9 4th level saints, and 3 holy emperor." He Chiu smiled, but his smile was filled with desolation. According to this calculation, we should be able to fight 6 battles. However, in the final battle with the Holy Emperor, I hope to have a one-on-one battle with young Master Jun. I'd like to learn from young Master Jun's unparalleled skills. That should be the case, there's definitely no problem. Jun Moxie agreed, appearing extremely generous. At this moment, although everyone in the camp of the 3 Holy Lands listened to the two of them expressionlessly, there was already a trace of excitement in everyone's eyes. Based on our hundreds of years of tacit understanding, we've long formed a flawless joint attack strategy. Jun Moxie, you're sending your subordinates to their deaths. Don't blame us for not showing mercy. Behind Jun Moxie, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer experts were like stubborn rock. Their expressions did not change in the slightest, but an indescribable battle intent rose from their bodies. Today's battle, firstly, is because I've been forced by the 3 Holy Lands to the point where I can no longer bear it. Secondly, since it's a battle, I need to have some good luck. To be honest, that's my ultimate goal. If I win, what should I do? If I lose, what should I do? He Chiu furrowed his brows, thinking that these words were a little shameless. You brat, you're obviously seeing that our strength is scattered, so you're taking advantage of our perilous situation to propose a battle. But in your mouth, you're actually saying that you've been forced into a corner by the 3 Holy Lands. You're really going against your conscience. But He Chiu was confident that victory was within his grasp, so he did not mind. Besides, even if Jun Moxie did not raise any conditions, he would have raised them himself. Jun Moxie's words not only made him a despicable person, but he had also fallen into his own trap. Naturally, since it's a battle, how can there be no corresponding conditions? Young Master Jun, please speak clearly. He Chiu revealed a sly smile, thinking, "You brat who's still wet behind your ears, you've finally fallen into my trap." Old ginger is still spicier. Jun Moxie also looked at him with a smile, thinking, "You old fox, you've finally fallen into my trap." The smaller the pepper, the more flavorful it is. One old and one young, these 2 foxes were scheming against each other. Both of them felt that victory was within their grasp, and they were immensely pleased with themselves. Both of them were smiling brightly at each other. If we win, the 3 Holy Lands must withdraw from the secular world to deal with Blizzard Silver City and the Sidu family. All the activities of the Duanmu family, Dongfang family, and other forces will no longer be restricted by the Holy Lands, and they will form their own entity. This is the first condition. Jun Moxie smiled. Of course. If you win in the end, we, the 3 Holy Lands, won't have the face to continue doing these things. Chiu Feng smiled lightly. He Chiu smiled lightly, thinking to himself, "Kid, you're still too inexperienced, you can't even think of the conditions." The second condition, if we win, then before the war for seizing the heavens, the 3 Holy Lands must not make a move against us. Jun Moxie smiled slyly. He only said that the 3 Holy Lands must not make a move against him, but he didn't say that he couldn't make a move against the 3 Holy Lands. This was a real prophecy trap. He Chiu had been cultivating bitterly in the Heaven Saint Palace all year round, so how could he have considered Jun Moxie's scheming thoughts? Hearing this, he replied without hesitation, "That's natural. If you win, all the old grudges will be written off, and all grudges will be forgotten." With a smile, Jun Moxie spat in his heart, thinking, "All grudges will be forgotten with a smile? What are you thinking? You're really daring, ah. Even if you're willing, I'm not." The third condition, if we win, I want the exquisite lotus from the Heaven Saint Palace. I want the exquisite lotus from the Heaven Saint Palace, a stalk of exquisite lotus with no less than 3 segments under its 9 petals. June Moxie chuckled and stated the condition that he wanted the most. At the same time, this condition was also a heavy bomb. This is not possible. He Ji-chyo did not even consider and directly rejected. The exquisite lotus is the most precious treasure of the Heaven Saint Palace for tens of thousands of years. Not to mention a whole stalk of exquisite lotus, even a single petal is not something that can be leaked. Why don't you change your condition? If I can change it, then I won't mention it. June Mo-sia said coldly. Saint Emperor I believe you can also tell that the reason why I didn't mention a single one of the first two conditions, as well as the battle strategy that was disadvantageous to me, was because of this last condition. If I can't even agree to this condition, then this battle between the two of us today is equivalent to having no substance at all. I will be at a complete disadvantage. Could it be that Holy Emperor, he doesn't even have this bit of courage? He Ji-chyo furrowed his brows and cursed in his heart. Aren't you a little too shameless? What do you mean by the first two conditions are meaningless? This old man has already agreed to the first two conditions, and you're saying such sarcastic words to make fun of me, he said helplessly. But that exquisite lotus is the most precious treasure of the Heaven Saint Palace. Although this old man has been in the Heaven Saint Palace for hundreds of years, I've only seen it twice. It's not something that this old man can make a decision on. Young Master June, aren't you making things difficult for me? Whether it's making things difficult for me or begging nicely, I don't care if you steal it or snatch it. In any case, I must have it. There's no room for negotiation, June Moxie said rudely. If Holy Emperor he doesn't agree, then today's battle will end in a chaotic battle. I've said it before, and I believe that Holy Emperor he can also see that there's a huge gap between the two of us. If it wasn't for that last condition, would I be willing to fight such a disadvantageous battle? If a chaotic battle breaks out, no matter how powerful Holy Emperor he is, I can guarantee that not a single person from the three Holy Lands will be able to leave this place alive. He Ji-chyo snorted coldly as a cold light flashed in his eyes. Young Master June, are you threatening this seat? June Moxie laughed coldly. Threatening? Is there a need for me to threaten you? I'm merely stating a fact, an objective fact. Holy Emperor since you brought them out, you have the obligation to bring them back safely. I've already told you the method to preserve your strength. Whether it succeeds or not, it's all up to you. What do I have to threaten you? Even if you don't agree, I'll slaughter all of you and find the Heaven Saint Palace to discuss conditions. No matter what, I, June Moxie, must obtain that exquisite lotus. Chapter 880. Just at this time, with a whoosh, three figures suddenly appeared in the center of the arena. There was no sound at all, and no one had detected them before this. The people who had come were the three guardians of the Heaven Saint Palace, all-seeing Rakshasa Chiao Ing, heart-sealing heavenly sword Ching In Shao, and willful wild saber Chu Wu Hui. Chiao Ying's hair was a little messy, and her face was pale. Ching In Shao and Chu Wu Hui's robes were torn, and there were traces of blood at the corner of their mouths. Their faces were pale gold, and it was clear that they had suffered serious internal injuries. The smile on June Moxie's face froze. He was cursing the 9 serenities and 14 masters in his heart. Useless. There were only 3 of them, and they actually managed to come back alive? Even if it was to delay them, it would have been fine. But now, with these 3 people here, this daddy's side is completely on the defensive. Even if they are not at full strength, they are still a huge threat. You agreed? In that case, the 3 of you guardians will also be participating in this decisive battle? June Mo-sia pretended to be stunned. No, they will not be participating. They do not have the time to participate. All they want to do is to witness this battle. Just like them, this young master is also a witness of this battle. A sinister voice came from afar, seemingly near and far at the same time. Carrying with it an indescribable eerie aura, another figure flashed, and a black figure landed on the ground. That person was clearly standing there, but his entire body seemed to be floating, as if he did not exist at all. Who else could appear in such a strange manner other than the 9 serenities and 14 masters? The scale is a little too big, June Moxie muttered in his heart. It felt like a celebrity team. This battle actually had the 3 guardians of the Heaven Saint Palace and the #1 expert in the world, the 9 serenities and 14 masters, as witnesses. No matter who won this battle, it would shake the world. If June Moxie won, it would directly shatter the original structure of this world. In addition to the 3 holy lands that ruled the world, there was also the Evil Monarch. Evil Monarch Manor. The 9 serenities and 14 masters were spotless. Their black robes were still neat and tidy, without a single wrinkle. On the other hand, the other 3 were in a sorry state. The result of the battle between the 4 of them was already obvious. The winner and loser were clear. June Moxie made up his mind and smiled. If that's the case, then I'm truly relieved. Brat, you don't seem to be that worried. If this young master didn't come, then your 300 people would be like sheep walking into a tiger's mouth. They would definitely be eaten up by the 3 guardians. Don't be fooled by how pathetic those 3 look. They're more than enough to take care of your people. How are you going to thank me? 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed. Of course I have to thank you. As for how I should thank you, how about I give you the complete song, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer? June Moxie said with a smile. It's you? So it's you. The eyes of the 9 serenities and 14 masters shone brightly as they looked at June Moxie with excitement. Isn't it me? June Moxie smiled lightly. Even if you didn't come, my people would definitely not be slaughtered by the 3 holy lands. At the very least, this daddy will just take out the Hongjun Pagoda and make everyone disappear. Then I'll go back in myself. Even if it's the 9 nether first young master, they won't be able to find me. If I didn't have such a backup plan, why would this daddy come out? To be a target? Do you think this daddy is stupid? But since you're here for free, then I'll use a pop song to send you off. This daddy still has a lot of pop songs here. I can definitely make use of you 100 times, 100 times. Ever since Qing Yin Shao arrived, he and Chu Wu Hui's eyes had been fixed on the 300 people behind June Moxie. The more they looked, the more astonished and shocked they became. The cultivation of these 2 people had long surpassed the peak of the mortal world. Their eyes were even sharper. With just a glance, they could tell the value of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer. The 300 people in front of them were indeed powerful, but they were not enough to be taken seriously by the 2 great protectors. However, there was a possibility that there was a mysterious method to increase one's strength behind them. This was a strong temptation that no one could resist. The 2 exchanged a look and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. If there really was such a mysterious method to raise one's strength quickly, it would be a great blessing to the entire human race. They could even form an army and kill their way through the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, exterminating the entire race of those damned strange races and getting rid of any future troubles. June Moxie, just now, it seemed like you were the ones who raised the conditions, and we've already agreed to them. But since it's a gamble, we must be fair. Just now, we only mentioned what conditions we would have to give if we lost, but we didn't say anything. If you lose in the end, what should we do? Qing Yin Shao said with a smile. We can't possibly only allow you to raise conditions and not allow us to raise any requests, right? How could there be such a thing? If we're gambling, then we'll bet on fairness. Whatever conditions you have, you can naturally raise them. This young master is listening attentively. June Moxie smiled lightly as he looked at the 2 sky sword and absolute blade sizing them up. How could he not know what conditions they wanted to raise? Was there even a need to think about it? As expected, Chu Wu Hui said, "We only have one condition. If our side wins, you and your subordinates will join the Heaven Saint Palace and become a direct force of the Heaven Saint Palace. How about that? Qing Yin Shao smiled lightly. There's no need to worry about your safety. As long as you become people of Heaven Saint Palace, the three Holy Lands will not target you anymore. Because dealing with you is equivalent to dealing with Heaven Saint Palace. Even if it's Mo Wudao, he wouldn't dare. In this way, it would be equivalent to eliminating your greatest worry. There will be no more worries. Fine. I agree. Jun Moxie did not hesitate in the slightest and directly agreed. In any case, he definitely wouldn't lose, so there was no harm in agreeing to such a verbal promise. Jun Dashao agreed so quickly that even Cheng Yin Shao and Chu Wu Hui were taken aback, not daring to believe their ears. He agreed just like that? Could it be that he was actually so confident? Even the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters couldn't help but look at Jun Moxie in shock. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell that in terms of individual strength, the people from the 3 Holy Lands had the advantage of being steady and steady. Their martial arts were solid, their mental state was stable, and they were all well trained. Every one of them was a veteran of hundreds of battles. On the other hand, although Jun Moxie's side was also full of fighting spirit, and everyone had an aura of fearlessness, strict discipline, and dense killing intent. In this aspect, they were indeed far above the people from the Holy Land. However, their cultivation was not pure, and there was an awkward feeling of not completely merging after forcefully raising their cultivation. Such a battle would most likely result in defeat, so why did Jun Moxie agree without any hesitation? Good. Young Master Jun is truly heroic. Qing Yin Shao praised. Regardless of the outcome of this battle, this Qing is filled with admiration towards young Master Jun's decisiveness. Today's battle, life and death, victory and defeat, will be up to the heavens. With the 3 guardians of Heaven Saint Palace and the publicly acknowledged number 1 expert of the continent, the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, as witnesses, both sides cannot go back on their words. Otherwise, the 4 of us will definitely join hands to kill you. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' eyes flashed with displeasure. He had already admitted that he was not the number 1 expert in the world. But Cheng Yin Shao just had to say that he was some number 1 expert at this time. It was obvious that he was trying to provoke him. Moreover, in a situation where he did not agree to join hands with him to kill him, this was taking matters into their own hands. Since you guys don't learn your lesson, this young master will at most play some underhanded tricks on you guys. Thinking about this, 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' figure floated to the side of the stage, and with a pew sound, a large rock rose up from the ground, and he sat on it. His posture was relaxed and carefree, as if he was waiting to watch a good show. In a battle of life and death, only victory and defeat are sought. Victory, life, and death, there are no complaints. Qing Yin Zhao's face suddenly turned cold. The first battle. The 3 Holy Lands will send out 3 4th-level venerables. After saying this, Cheng Yin Shao and the other 2 retreated at the same time, floating 20 zhang away. The center of the battle stage was empty. 3 4th-level venerables. Jun Moxie smiled lightly, and said to Solitary Eagle, "Old Ing, for this battle, please arrange for people to fight." Solitary Eagle laughed loudly, and his expression turned cruel. "The venerables of the Holy Lands will fight, but from our side, which venerables will fight?" Footsteps sounded, and among the 300 people, all the 4th-level venerables took a step forward at the same time. Their auras became heavy, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Solitary Eagle looked at the 3 people at the front and said, "Then it will be the 3 of you. Fight." The 3 people agreed loudly. Solitary Eagle said loudly, "No matter who fights, this old man only has one request, only victory, no defeat. Victory means life, defeat means death. If you lose, there is no need to come back, just directly commit suicide on the stage." The three people shouted at the same time. If we lose, we will not have the face to come back to see young master. We can only take revenge with our lives. The three people's expressions were cold as they stepped out. As the three of them walked out at the same time, a sharp murderous aura, like a sharp sword, directly rushed towards the opposite side. It was just three people, but the aura they exuded was like a magnificent army. The murderous aura of an iron-blooded battle formation suddenly surged. These 300 people are indeed not ordinary. Qing Yinzhao's eyes were still locked onto a member of the Heaven Destroyer team, and he suddenly sighed. That's right. In this world, where did so many geniuses come from? Chu Wu Hui's expression was solemn. Other than the two people at the front, the others are not even over 40 years old. Brother Qing, this scene, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I definitely wouldn't believe it. Chapter 881. The three venerables sent out by the three Holy Lands were all from Hermitage. The three of them looked at each other and smiled casually. Their white robes fluttered in the wind as they walked forward. Although they were facing a battle, their expressions were exceptionally relaxed, as if they were taking a stroll in the park. It was as if they did not care about the ferocious aura of the enemies in front of them at all. One side was in a state of mutual hostility, while the other side was calm. One side was dressed in white, while the other was dressed in black. It was the clearest contrast. Both sides were like natural enemies, facing each other. In your opinion, which side has a higher chance of winning this battle? This is a battle of life and death. Defeat is equivalent to death. It is not easy for our holy lands to nurture experts, and it takes hundreds of years for them to do so. These people before us are the core strength of the war for seizing the heavens. But because of a mistake made by Mo Wudao, they have to engage in a pointless battle here. It really makes my heart ache. The decisions of the Holy Lands are made by us, but we do not have the right to interfere. The decisions of the previous palace lords are mostly like this. Speaking of which, this time, it's just that Mo Wudao's luck is too bad, to have met such a rare little monster. Chu Wu Hui said lightly. But this battle, we can definitely win. Qing Yinzhao nodded in agreement and said, although the three people on the other side have a strong killing intent, coupled with their ferocious aura, this kind of killing intent, if they were to encounter an ordinary enemy, just the aura alone would be enough to cause them to lose their composure and wait helplessly for death. But this is precisely because they are unable to control and restrain their aura as they wish. The moment they are in a battle with experts, this kind of killing intent will naturally reveal their location. He smiled delightedly and continued. You should know that in a decisive battle, under many circumstances, due to the speed at which the combatants move is too fast, the naked eye can't see them clearly. They can only rely on their senses and aura to make their move. The aura of the other side is shocking, but it has also revealed their fatal weakness. On the other hand, the three on our side are extremely calm and did not show such a situation. This battle has already been decided before it has even begun. There's no need to worry. Meanwhile, the three members of the three hallowed grounds stood side by side, and their auras surged. They were about to attack. Looks like the three of them have already figured out the other party's weakness. I believe that they will have to fight fast from the start to completely disrupt the enemy's pace. This is the best way to deal with it. Chu Wu Hui nodded his head in satisfaction. In this battle, even though our side has suffered some losses, it won't be too serious. As for the other three, I can already announce that they will die for sure. Qing Yinzhao nodded in agreement. The expressions of the three relaxed at the same time. Although it was only the first battle, it was still a good omen. A good beginning would definitely boost morale. At this time, the three Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer members suddenly changed their original formation. The person in the middle took 2 steps forward, the person on the left took 2 steps back, and the person on the right took a step forward. With just a few simple steps, the three of them formed a strange triangular battle formation. However, this battle formation was not an ordinary triangular pyramid. There was a vague sense of distance within it. The person at the front raised his head and puffed out his chest. His tall and sturdy body seemed to be able to support the heavens and earth. The person who was slightly lagging behind bent his body slightly, like a leopard hunting its prey. As for the person on the right, his feet did not move in a straight line. Instead, he turned his body sideways, and the killing intent around him actually became much fainter. This was an extremely strange battle formation. Such a battle formation had never appeared in this world before. This battle formation is very strange, really very strange. Qing Yinxiao furrowed his brows, then relaxed. However, it might not have too much of an impact on the battle. Qiao Ying and Chu Wu Hui both nodded their heads in agreement. In a battle, especially a battle between high-level experts, military formations were completely useless. Everything was based on the cultivation of the two sides. No matter how ingenious the formation was, it would only be a joke in a battle between experts that could change in an instant. Jun Moxie and Mei Xuyan looked at each other and smiled disdainfully at the three protectors who were analyzing the battle formation. Three idiots. Mei Xuyan's smile was like the blooming of spring flowers. There were no absolutes in the world. In the past, there might not be a battle formation that could affect the battle. But now, there might not be one in the future. These protectors did not know that this strange triangular battle formation was actually the heaven, earth, human, three talents killing formation that Jun Moxie had brought out from the Hongjun Pagoda. Once this formation was activated, the strength of the three protectors would be perfectly stacked together. Furthermore, their minds would be connected, and the battle strength of any one of them would be equivalent to the combined strength of the three of them. In other words, after the three of them stacked together and attacked at the same time, their strength would be increased by 9 times. How could this be an ordinary battle formation? Please. Please. 2 low voices sounded out, and the 6 of them suddenly clashed together like a whirlwind. The moment the battle began, it immediately fell into a stalemate. In a battle of life and death, everyone's first move was to kill. No one would show mercy. White shadows flew everywhere as the 3 venerables from the Holy Lands attacked at the same time. In an instant, each of them had already launched at least a dozen attacks. Then, they pounced forward and engaged in an even more dangerous close combat battle. But the 3 black-robed figures did not make any moves to engage in battle. Instead, they suddenly began to change directions in a dazzling manner, spinning like a windmill. The final landing point of the 3 people remained the same. It was just that they had changed their people. Pring 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 sounds rang out continuously, and the center of the battlefield was suddenly filled with dust. The eyes of the 9 serenities and 14 masters flashed, and he suddenly muttered to himself, "This formation is very strange, it's really a little interesting." Within the formation, the 3 black-robed men continued to spin, but no matter how they changed, the 3 people's landing points seemed to have been predetermined, never leaving the original position of the 3 people. The attacks from the 3 venerables from the Holy Lands were often forcefully blocked by the person in front, and the other 2 would take advantage of this opportunity to attack the other person. As the 3 black-robed men spun, it was as if they had set up a dense net around each other. This invisible net perfectly fused the strength of the 3 people, and then distributed it to each of the 3 people in the formation. Gradually, the power of the net grew stronger and stronger. The battle had only started in a few breaths' time, but the venerables from the Holy Lands had already turned into evenly matched opponents. Then, as time passed, the venerables from the Holy Lands were gradually forced into a disadvantageous position. The situation was becoming more and more grim. Not good. Qing Yinxiao's eyes narrowed, and he blurted out, "What's going on? How did this battle turn into such a state?" Could it be that the strange formation of those three people really has some great secret behind it? There are strange things every year, but there are especially many this year. A battle that was supposed to be won in the bag actually turned into such a state? As expected of the strongest force in the Xian continent, they are truly capable of doing what others cannot. A certain eerie voice used a strange tone to mock Qing Yinshao. Qing Yinshao turned his head to look. Actually, there was no need to look. In this place, the only person who could use this kind of voice, this kind of tone, and such undisguised mockery, other than the 9 serenities and 14 masters, there was no one else. As far as his eyes could see, the 9 serenities and 14 masters had soundlessly arrived about 10 to 20 zhang away from him, watching the intense battle in the field. Such a distance, to experts above the Holy Emperor level, was basically no distance at all. If Qing Yinshao and the other two really wanted to launch a sneak attack, even the 9 serenities and 14 masters would have to suffer a heavy blow. But the other party still dared to come over. This kind of bearing was not something that could be described with just the word boldness. Jun Moxie cursed in his heart. Pay, what boldness! This is just this madman being arrogant to the extreme, not putting the 3 experts in his eyes at all, and even hoping for them to make a move. This young noble currently does not have that kind of strength. If I had that kind of strength, this young noble could be even more arrogant, yes, bolder. Qing Yinshao did not seem to mind the 9 serenities and 14 masters' mockery at all. He continued to watch the battle with a frown. Whether it is individual strength, overall strength, or the coordination between them, the performance of the 3 venerables from the Holy Lands is remarkable, far surpassing their opponents. Even if we were to personally take action, disregarding our individual strength, we might not be stronger than them. But with such perfect coordination and strength, they are actually being suppressed by their opponents? This matter is really inexplicable. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't make sense. The Heaven Saint Palace is getting worse and worse, it is really pitiful. The protectors who claim to be far stronger than the Holy Emperor actually have such poor foresight, it is truly lamentable. Looks like the decline of the Heaven Saint Palace is just around the corner. The 9 serenities and 14 masters folded his hands in his sleeves and continued to mock. Up until now, this old man can only see that the positions of those 3 people are a little strange. As for anything else, I really can't see anything. Brother 14's foresight is truly unique, please enlighten me. Chu Wu Hui was not angry, but humbly asked for advice. Being modest and open-minded was the demeanor of an expert of a generation. The ending of those 3 people from the Holy Lands is already decided. They will definitely be finished. A black light flashed in the eyes of the 9 serenities and 14 masters. This young noble said that your foresight is not good enough. Could it be that I was wrong? You only saw that there is something strange, but you did not discover what exactly is strange. As long as you observe carefully, every time those 3 black-robed men attack, their movements can be said to be unpredictable. This is also the main reason why no one can see through them. Although the battle formation they operate is indeed ever-changing, their own strength is far inferior to ours. Even if their movement technique is strange, it can't escape our eyes. As long as time passes, we will eventually be able to find some clues. This young master was also able to see through the mysteries of their battle formation because of this. Chapter 882. No matter how fiercely the 3 from the Holy Lands attack, the responsibility of defense always falls on the shoulders of one person. And this one person actually withstands all 3 of their attacks, and the position he's defending is that sharp corner. In a normal battle formation, this position should be a sharp point of attack, but in this formation, it's a defensive position. The 3 of them looked over with rapt attention. They were all martial arts experts, and with the help of 9 serenities and 14 masters, they were able to understand the changes in the battle formation in just a few moments. 9 serenities and 14 masters said in a low voice, "The formation of the 3 from the other side is truly impressive. Every time, only one person has to block an attack. Although that person will definitely suffer a great loss of energy, as the battle formation changes, the next person to block the attack will be the other person. Because of this, the first person will be able to catch a breather, and by taking turns to block the attacks, each person will have 2 rounds of time to recover. Although it can't be said that there is no loss of energy, the amount of exhaustion is negligible." "That's right, that's exactly it." Qing Yinzhao's face changed as he said, "The 3 of them are not exhausted, but the 3 from the Holy Lands are continuously being exhausted." 9 serenities and 14 masters nodded lightly and said, "Not only that, when this sharp corner is blocking the attacks, the other 2 are also attacking at the same time. And their targets are the same person. In other words, every time they attack, it's equivalent to 2 against 1. Facing such a strange battle formation, the 3 from the Holy Lands are completely unable to display their full strength. Every round of attacks, at least one person will fall into a situation where he can't do anything. At most, there will only be one person who can truly attack. And when the other side counterattacks, all 3 of them will attack the same target at the same time. Even if their overall strength is weaker than the 3 from the Holy Lands, they are still able to take the initiative, and now they are gradually gaining the upper hand. The accumulation of advantages will naturally lead to victory. Once victory is established, they will be completely powerless to reverse the situation, and can only wait to be slaughtered." As he spoke up to hear, Qing Yinzhao, Chu Wuhui, and Qiao Ying's expressions all changed. "Don't be surprised yet. The real surprise is yet to come. I'm afraid there are other mysteries to this formation. It seems like there's a power overlaying effect, but I don't know the specific effect yet." The 9 serenities and 14 masters' sharp eyes locked on to the battle, deep in thought. From Brother 14th's point of view, this battle has already been decided. "Is there really nothing we can do?" Qiao Ying asked anxiously. "That's right. There's no hope of winning. Judging from the current situation, there's only one way to fight for a draw." 9 serenities and 14 masters' eyes flashed with a black light, but he laughed strangely. "What method?" Chu Wu thought for a long time but still couldn't think of a way to reverse the situation, so he couldn't help asking curiously. "Immediately self-destruct and perish together with the enemy. That would result in a tie. Although the enemy has a great advantage, it's still difficult for them to withstand the self-destruction of 3 venerables. It's still possible to perish together." A trace of cruelty appeared in the 9 serenities and 14 masters' voice as he said mockingly, "It's a pity that the 3 venerables from the Holy Lands are still in a disadvantageous position. They're not in a desperate situation yet, so I believe that they won't be willing to sacrifice their lives, hoping for a fluke. But if they wait until the enemy accumulates enough momentum, even if they want to self-destruct and perish together with the enemy, they won't have the chance to do so." Chu Wuhui and the other 2 fell silent. They were all peerless experts of the current generation. How could they not understand this? As long as there was a chance of survival, who would be willing to risk their lives rashly? They were all of the same mind, and there was no way to blame them. Other than that, they also made a mistake. The 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed coldly. At the start of the battle, the 3 black-robed men did not use any weapons, as if they wanted to fight with their fists and legs. And the 3 fools from the Holy Lands did not use any weapons either. If they had used their weapons from the start, although it might not have been enough to change the situation, the result might have been different. The 9 nether 14th young master laughed coldly. This young master is puzzled. Before the battle started, it was already clearly stated that it would be a battle of life and death. Only one side can live, so they should naturally be unscrupulous. Not to mention using weapons, even using hidden weapons and poison is allowed. They hung their swords on their waists, is it for decoration? How foolish! As the 9 serenities and 14 masters spoke up to this point, there was a loud boom in the battlefield, and the situation changed. A dazzling saber light suddenly shot up into the sky, and an extremely sharp energy rippled through the air. A loud roar shook the earth. Kill! As the 9 serenities and 14 masters had expected, there were indeed people who had used weapons. And the ones who had taken the opportunity to use their weapons were the 3 members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer team. This sudden addition of white blades had completely destroyed the last line of defense that the 3 venerables from the Holy Lands had painstakingly maintained. Since these 3 people drew their swords and attacked, they directly displayed the ultimate move of the body and sword fusion. They moved with their swords, and the surging sword light shot into the sky. Even under such an absolute advantage, they still used the tactic of risking their lives to kill each other. This kind of injuring 3,000 enemies while injuring 800 technique was only second to self-destruction. Such a horrifying aura swept across the entire venue in a split second, causing all the onlookers to hold their breaths. After a moment of shock, the people from the 3 holy lands began to curse. Despicable! Shameless! Shameless beyond belief! Many of the experts from the Holy Lands were so angry that their eyes were red, and their bodies were trembling. They pointed their fingers and cursed angrily, their hair standing on end. Only Qiao Ying and the other 2 remained silent. The 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed strangely. You're clinging to your so-called decadent demeanor, but the other party has adopted the most correct tactic. You can't win, but you still curse the other party for being shameless. The 3 holy lands are indeed righteous sects. Excellent style, I can't help but admire you. On the other side, when Jun Moxie heard the other party's curses, he was not angry at all. Instead, he was laughing so hard that his whole body was convulsing. He turned to Mei Shiyan and said, "These idiots from the Holy Lands are really too interesting. They're so happy when they're in the spotlight, but when they're at a disadvantage, they're cursing in the street. And they're even cursing in such a well-known way. They're really too stupid. Shuiyan, why did you suffer so much in the hands of these people in the past? I'm really too curious." Mei Shiyan's face turned red, and she rolled her eyes at him. Although the people from the Holy Lands are a little more shameless, their degree of shamelessness is not even 1/10,000th of yours. Look at the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer. They were originally a group of straightforward, iron-blooded men, fierce warriors of the battlefield. But in your hands, what have they become? Each and every one of them is treacherous, sneaky, and like bandits. What you said is wrong. This is a battle to the death. Naturally, they're going to do anything. If they want to play around with demeanor, we're not going to play around with them. Is life more important or demeanor? This young master is really speechless. I'm not the one who taught them how to act. If you don't believe me, you can ask the members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer. On the battlefield, is it more important to fight for victory, or is it more important to keep one's demeanor? Who doesn't know that? Do they still need me to teach them? Jun Moxie said disdainfully. At this moment, the situation in the battlefield had undergone a tremendous change. The 3 venerables of the hallowed grounds had fallen into an absolute disadvantage. Under the barrage of attacks from the other party, whatever teamwork, whatever formation, all disappeared. They could only frantically defend and dodge. They didn't even have the chance to draw their weapons. Just as the 9 serenities and 14 masters had said, it was all too late now. The victor was already clear. The outcome was already decided. Along with 3 angry roars, 3 black-clothed silhouettes leapt up with sharp, snow-white blade lights. On the ground, 3 white silhouettes were staggering backwards. Their footsteps were unstable, as if they were drunk. There were already many wounds on their bodies, and stains of blood were constantly splashing out. With a flash of their blades, the three of them landed again. Taking advantage of this gap, the three venerables from the three holy lands finally had the chance to draw their sword. Following their simultaneous movements, three clear sounds rang out, and their swords were unsheathed. Holding them in their hands, they couldn't help but feel invigorated. Behind them, in the camp of experts from the Holy Lands, everyone heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. They finally saw a glimmer of hope. Drawing their swords now was much better than fighting bare-handed against the sabers. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters raised his eyebrows in puzzlement and looked suspiciously at Jun Moxie. He really couldn't understand why he would make such a stupid move when he had such an advantage. How could he let the other party have the time to draw their swords? Wasn't he creating trouble for himself? On the other side, a trace of sincere pity flashed across Mei Shuyan's face as she sighed softly. Jun Moxie chuckled evilly and said in a low voice, "The show is finally going to shine. Ha ha!" Behind him, the eyes of the 300 or so burly men in black shone with an unusually fervent light. In the blink of an eye, 3 black-robed figures swept down from the sky, the sabers in their hands carrying an earth-shattering aura, completely sealing off all paths of escape for the 3 venerables from the Holy Lands. The sabers slashed down unreasonably. The 3 people on the ground raised their swords in unison to block, each of them pouring all their strength into their swords. They swore in their hearts that as long as they blocked this saber, it would be the death of these 3 black-robed men. Because when these 3 people descended from the sky, they seemed to be mighty and imposing, yet they themselves were completely exposed, and their eyes were filled with flaws. So long as this final strike was unable to kill their enemies, then their spirits would be greatly reduced, and it would surely cause them to fall into a situation of certain death. Could it be that they were really that confident? The 3 guardians stared intently, their hearts filled with great suspicion. Cha, the soft sound of weapons clashing rang out. Chu Wu Hui stomped his feet in exasperation. *T. They're using divine weapons. All 3 of them are using divine weapons. King Despicable. Chapter 883. So, this was purely a huge trap. At the last moment, they would pull out their swords, giving them endless hope. But in an instant they would be sent from the edge of the cliff straight to the 18 levels of hell, with no chance of turning back. Amidst the flabbergasted and incredulous gazes, the swords and sabers clashed. But like snowflakes meeting the blazing sun, the swords of the 3 venerables did not even last for 1/100th of a second, breaking into pieces. When the sabers clashed with the swords, a light sound akin to wood being chopped rang out, and the sabers slashed down without any pause. Blood splattered everywhere. Amidst the miserable screams, the 3 burly men raised their sabers and slashed out 3 times in an instant. The first slash broke the long sword, and it directly slashed into the shoulder of the venerable from the Holy Land, almost reaching his waist. Then, he raised his saber and the second slash landed on the other shoulder. With a single slash, half of the arm was sent flying several zhang away. The third slash decapitated. 3 heads flew up into the air. Qiao Ying closed her eyes. The people from the Holy Lands were all dumbfounded, staring blankly at the 3 heads that were still rolling in the air. No one could think anymore. Just now, he clearly saw that the 3 of them had found a gap. With their swords in their hands, they had turned the tables. The opponent had even made a stupid move, revealing a big flaw. Just when he thought that victory was in his grasp, he didn't know why, but suddenly the soldiers were destroyed and the people were killed. They had completely lost. How was this possible? What was going on? On the battlefield, the 3 burly men from the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer sects stood with their sabers in hand. Their bodies were covered in blood, and on the ground was a pile of mutilated corpses. With a loud clang, the 3 sabers returned to their sheaths. The 3 burly men looked coldly at the experts on the other side, then turned around and returned to their group. First battle. Victory to the evil monarch. Chu Wu Hui gritted his teeth and announced. At this moment, the victor was clear. As the official, even if he was unwilling to speak, he had to announce this result. In the camp of the Holy Lands, everyone's eyes were red, and their breathing was ragged. All of them gritted their teeth. But no one spoke. Everyone realized this. Today's battle was a battle of life and death. There was only life and death, regardless of victory or defeat, survival of the fittest, and the fight would not end until one side was dead. Under such a premise, all sorts of despicable and shameless methods could be used. Those who lost and died had no right to blame their opponents. Died an unjust death? You can only blame yourself for being careless. Blame yourself for not using your ultimate move in advance. Blame yourself for not being despicable enough. But no matter how much he blamed, he could not blame the enemy. Without waiting for the 4 witnesses who stood at the peak of the world to speak, 5 people in white had already slowly walked out. 5 first-rank saints. The prelude to the second battle had officially begun. The faces of the 5 people from the Holy Lands were filled with killing intent. Their hands were on the hilts of their swords as they slowly stepped forward. Their auras were extremely heavy. They walked over slowly, but the corners of their white robes did not move at all. Even their drooping sleeves did not move in the slightest. There were 2 from Hermitage, 1 from Supreme Golden City, and 2 from Illusory Blood Sea. They formed the saint lineup for this battle. June Moxie, send out your men and fight with us. The leader of the saints stared straight at June Moxie's face as he said in a deep voice. These 5 people believed that they would not make the same mistake as the previous 3. They had not even started fighting, but were already prepared to draw their swords at any time. This battle was bound to be even more dangerous than the previous one. A few second-rank saints made use of this time to quickly clean up the corpses of the previous 3 people from the center of the arena. Looking at the venerable corpses that were still alive just a moment ago, their faces were filled with sadness. There was also an indescribable feeling of grief and indignation brewing in the hearts of the crowd. June Moxie, hurry up and send out your men to die. What's the point of plotting and scheming? Just because you used dirty tricks and won by a fluke, you think that the outcome is decided? Seeing that June Moxie was still casually joking around with Mei Shuyan, completely ignoring him, the saint could not help but be enraged and roared again. June Moxie turned around and looked at him in surprise. He smiled and said, "The ancients often said that soldiers who mourn will win. Everyone, you can mourn to your heart's content. Who knows, you might have a chance to win this battle. I'm not in a hurry to send out my men, which is equivalent to prolonging your time in this world. It's fine if you don't feel grateful." After pausing for a while, June Dashao laughed coldly and continued, "Why, are you still putting on this mournful look to scare me? Damn it, we've already agreed on a battle to the death. Your men are useless. If they die, then so be it. Why, you can't accept it?" The 5 people opposite him were so angry that their chests were heaving up and down. They glared at him, wishing that they could spit on his detestable face. The one in front said hatefully, "We naturally know about a battle to the death. We don't need you to tell us. My comrade died in battle. I have the duty to avenge him and collect the debt of blood." Sigh, the young are experienced in the pugilistic world. Revenge breeds revenge, will there ever be an end? June Moxie lamented. Killing in the pugilistic world is really harmful. Since the beginning of time, many happy families have been destroyed because of senseless killings. 5 saints, if you really have a deep friendship with those who died just now and can't bear to part with them, just pull out your swords and stab your own throat. Then you can naturally reunite. Why do you still need to take revenge? Why don't you pull out your swords? Don't you want to see your comrades again? Don't hesitate anymore. If you swing your swords quickly, you can reunite. How refreshing! The moment he said that, everyone's face turned strange. Even the three guardians, who had profound cultivation and transcendent mental fortitude, looked at June Monsieur with their mouths agape. They had never imagined that there would be such a shameless fellow in this world, to actually stand on the side of righteousness and advise those who came to seek revenge to commit suicide. And he even said it in such a dignified manner. If he didn't commit suicide, he would be letting down the heavens and earth, letting down his family, and letting down himself, ha ha ha. The 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed loudly and praised, "This brat's shamelessness is really like the style of the 3 Holy Lands. This is simply the momentum of the pupil surpassing the master. Using such methods to deal with the 3 Holy Lands, this young master is truly pleased. How King delightful." Ching In Shao and Chu Wu Hui didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What is this? It's one thing for you to praise June Moxie, but why do you have to mention the Holy Lands? Although the actions of the Holy Lands are somewhat despicable at times, they are still relatively acceptable on the surface. How could they be so shameless and unscrupulous? The 5 saints were trembling all over, on the verge of going berserk. However, June Dashao still continued to lecture them. Besides, how can this be a place for revenge? This is the place for the battle. You guys coming out only means that one side is ready for the other battle. Revenge? Is there something wrong with your head? I originally wanted to let you guys live a little longer, but you can save your lives now. It's really hard to be a good person. In the next battle, there will definitely be people coming to take revenge for you guys. You don't have to worry about the lonely road to the Yellow Springs. Young Master June, words are not the key to victory. Hai Wuya said in a low voice. This holy emperor of the sea's face was black. Clearly, he did not feel good in his heart. Words are not the key to victory. But distorting the truth is not something that the 3 Holy Lands can do. June Moxie chuckled coldly and said in a low voice, "The enemy has 5 first-level saints. Who from our side will go out and kill them?" Me. 170 first-level saints stepped forward at the same time, their eyes burning with a fanatical battle intent. These members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer team had increased their strength like a dream in this 1 year. Then, they had reaped lives in a frenzy. Whether it was their bodies or souls, they had all been turned into killing machines by June Moxie. To them, battle had long since become a joy that they would never get tired of, and it was a joy that delighted the eyes and heart. Especially killing a saint in a head-on battle. How many times could something like this happen in a lifetime? Naturally, everyone fought to be the first. June Moxie did not even turn his head. Ling Ling ordered, "Heaven Destroyer Team 9, the last 5, step forward. Fight." Yes. The 5 black-robed figures strode out at the same time. Every step they took seemed to step on the juncture of life and death, creating the most shocking note of death. 10 emotionless eyes stared at the 5 saints, as if they were looking at 5 lifeless corpses. The 5 of them had their hands on the hilts of their blades. Just like their opponents, they were also prepared to draw their blades at any time. "How is this battle?" Xiaoying asked. The battle had not started, but the intense killing atmosphere had already allowed her to foresee the cruel outcome of this battle. "I can't say for sure now, but from the comparison of strength, it's the same as the previous battle. Our side still holds a great advantage, and in this battle, no one will dare to underestimate the enemy anymore. Logically speaking, we should be able to win easily, but for some reason, this old man still doesn't dare to be certain." Qing Yinshao furrowed his brows. "What's there to be uncertain about? I've been keeping an eye on the 3 people who just went back. Those 3 people completely relied on that strange formation and their invincible swords to unexpectedly win the first round. Now, those 3 people's weapons are still hanging on their waists. They haven't been handed over to the 5-man team for this battle." "Haha. Chu Wu Hui laughed lightly. Even if there's only one of those treasured sabers that can cut through metal like mud, it's already a rare treasure in the world. Today, 3 of them have appeared at the same time. Old Qing, could it be that you think that these 300 black-robed men all have a treasured saber that can cut through metal like mud? This is the biggest joke this old man has heard in 1,000 years. 9 serenities and 14 masters looked at him and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Oh? Chu Wu Hui, do you think that your holy lands will win this battle for sure? If you're really so sure, then how about we make a bet?" "Bet? What bet?" Chu Wu Hui raised his eyes and looked at 9 serenities and 14 masters warily. Chapter 884. Dig earthworms? What's the use of that? Even if you have some strange use for it, I have no use for it. Chu Wu Hui said warily. What was this guy planning? Why did he come up with such a strange bet? I don't have any use for earthworms. This is just a bet, there's no other meaning to it. I just want to see how you look when you dig for earthworms with your butt sticking up, that's all. The 9 nether 14th young master said lightly. Don't you want to see me dig for earthworms? Fine. I'm going all out with you today, I'll bet with you. Chu Wu Hui gritted his teeth. I don't believe that these guys will have such good luck to win 2 rounds in a row. Brother 14th, if you lose, you're not allowed to go back on your word. Whoever goes back on his word is a son of a turtle. 9 serenities and 14 masters chuckled. It's a deal. Whoever goes back on his word is a son of a turtle. Chu Wu Hui clenched his teeth. This daddy can't beat you in a fight, but can I win a bet? 14th young master, just wait to dig earthworms with your butt up. I'm also looking forward to seeing who will dig earthworms with their butt up. 9 serenities and 14 masters crossed his arms and said confidently. Qiao Ying and Qing Yin Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was the legendary number 1 lunatic in the world, 9 serenities and 14 masters? Was this still the Heaven Saint Palace's willful mad saber Chu Wu Hui? No matter how they looked at it, these 2 were no different from 2 kids who hadn't grown up yet. As they spoke, the 2 groups of people had already clashed. At almost the same instant they charged, they drew their weapons. Blade light and sword light flashed in the air. But everyone could see that when the 5 men in black moved, there were some in front and some behind, and they gradually spread out. However, the distance between them was the same. If one looked closely at these 5 people, they would find that their positions were full of rhythm. East, west, north, south, and center, each position was occupied by one person. The distance between each person and the other person was exactly the same, without the slightest deviation. The formation was completed in an instant. Then, the 5 of them roared at the same time and started running. Other than the one in the middle who remained motionless, the other 4 in the 4 directions all took big strides at the same time. They didn't charge forward with this step, but ran in a vertical circle. They ran circles around the person in the middle. While everyone was still feeling surprised, the swords of the 5 white-robed saints converged into a torrent and surged over. At the side, Chu Wu Hui's mouth was agape as he muttered, "Yet another strange formation. Don't tell me." His heart, which had been abnormally calm before, began to mutter at this moment. The corners of the 9 serenities and 14 masters' mouth curled up into a strange, as expected, smile that no one could see. Clanging sounds rang out in an instant. The 4 black-robed men on the periphery fought with all their might, but they maintained a stance of retreating as soon as they touched. When the saints from the Holy Lands attacked, they were clearly fighting the one in Dongfang's position. But before they could retract their swords, the one in the south had already appeared in front of them, and the saber in their hands had already turned into a bolt of lightning. They had just dealt with the one in front of them, and the other person's saber was already chopping down. At almost the same time, the saints from the 5 Holy Lands felt that they were being attacked by 4 enemies at the same time. It was supposed to be a 5 versus 4 situation, so why did they feel like they were fighting on their own? What was going on? Where were their comrades on their side? The enemy's battle formation was like an endless arc, completely invulnerable. Every single person was like a slippery loach, completely impossible to catch. But when they attacked, they were like the most ferocious cheetahs. The more he watched, the uglier Chu Wu Hui's expression became. Because he suddenly realized that the 5 saints from the 3 holy lands were gradually falling into a disadvantageous position. And the burly man in the middle, who was also the core of this battle formation, had not moved at all from the start to the end. What the hell? How could this be? From the current situation, it was clearly 5 against 4, so why were they still falling into a disadvantageous position? Jun Moxie was smiling faintly, while Mei Shiyan's expression was relaxed. Both of them were exceptionally at ease. Formations were indeed marvelous things. They could allow the weak to defeat the strong. Even if the target of the formation was a human body, and the effects were slightly weaker, it still possessed unimaginable power. 5 elements formation. This was the name of the formation that the 5 saints were controlling. The 5 directions represented the 5 elements: north, south, east, west, middle, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Right now, this formation had only just been activated, and had yet to truly utilize the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Once the formation was activated for a period of time, and the qi gathered had accumulated to a certain extent, it would be able to use the 5 elements in the air to complement or counteract each other, perfectly integrating it into the battle. The 5 black figures gradually formed into a revolving ball of black light. The 5 white-robed saints from the Holy Lands were like tigers trying to devour the sky, unable to do anything at all. They were completely at a disadvantage, and could only defend passively. It was incomparably depressing. No one had expected that this battle would actually reach such a stage. The situation was practically the same as the previous battle. Chu Wu Hui had a bitter expression on his face. Was he about to go dig for earthworms? He kept muttering, "Stupid, if you can't win on the ground, can't you just jump into the sky to fight? Are your movement techniques just for show? You're really stupid to the point of death." The 9 Nether 14th young master looked at him from the corner of his eyes, but his spiritual sense was observing the entire battle. Suddenly, a strange expression appeared on his face, but it was quickly concealed. He remained calm and did not say a word. Qiao Ying, however, sensitively discovered the expression on 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' face. She said calmly, "Brother 14, did you discover something else?" 9 Serenities and 14 Masters shook his head and thought hard for a while. "I did discover something, but I can't figure it out, Qiao Ying was about to ask further when she heard a cry of surprise from the crowd. Looking over, she immediately understood what 9 Serenities and 14 Masters meant when he said he couldn't figure it out. Because she herself had also discovered the problem, but she also couldn't figure it out. It turned out that just now, the 5 first-level saints from the Holy Lands saw that the situation was unfavorable and let out a long roar at the same time. As expected, they flew up according to Chu Wu Hui's plan. The 5 of them had the same idea. Once they were in the air, they would immediately become one with their swords and look down from above. Even if they were to suffer heavy injuries, they would still chop these 5 despicable fellows into meat paste. However, something unexpected and even unimaginable happened as they flew up. The 5 opponents also followed suit. Although they were in the air, there was no change in their formation. It was as if the opponents did not use any strength at all to fly up. Looking at the stunned expressions on the faces of the 5, Jun Mo-Xie was extremely pleased with himself. Idiots, from the start of this battle until now, it has already evolved into your qi driving them. No matter how you move, they will be able to catch up without using the slightest bit of strength. Perfect use of your strength to hit yourself. Whether it's on the ground or in the sky, the result is the same. On the ground, you guys can still take a breather. But now that you're in the air, you have no more room to maneuver. The Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer group is in the middle of the formation and can rely on your strength to stay in the air. They don't even need to use any strength. The higher you are in the air, the faster this battle will end. Hasten your own defeat, no one can blame you. A bunch of idiots. As expected, the higher they were in the air, the true might of the 5 elements formation was unleashed. The 5 first-level saints from the Holy Lands could not even catch their breath, not to mention using their strongest moves. Suddenly, the formation in the air changed once again. Of the 4 people that had originally formed a black current, one of them suddenly broke away from the black current, gradually revealing a bright golden light. Following that, another person broke away from the formation, his entire body emitting a faint green light. The third person's entire body was dark blue, filling the air. The fourth person's entire body was fiery red, as if a ball of fire had ignited in the air. The person in the middle was covered in a bright yellow color, dazzling and bright. The 5 people's bodies glowed brightly. Finally, they had the next step. When the 5 elements are united, the heavens and earth move. When the heart of the formation appears, ghosts and gods weep. In just a flash, the yellow light in the middle was the first to explode out, bringing with it a vast and mighty saber light. The first white-robed saint was doing his best to deal with the attacks of the other 4 people. Suddenly, he was interrupted by the saber and retreated in shock. However, their auras had already been drawn into one. How could he escape? His retreat had instead caused the attacks of the other 5 people to focus on him. In an instant, 5 sabers fell from the 4 directions at the same time. 5 mountain-like saber lights pressed down at the same time. He only had time to let out a long scream before the 5 sharp sabers slashed his body at the same time. The white-robed body instantly became more than 10 pieces of incomplete body parts, spraying blood that dyed the blue sky red as he fell from the sky. Just as he fell, the 5 different colored rays of light did not stop, but converged to form the most dazzling rainbow, facing the other 4 people at the same time. The mountains of sabers overlapped, like the waves of the Yangtze River, the rising tide of the sea. Kill! The 5 people roared at the same time. Ball after ball of fresh blood exploded in the sky, like the brilliant fireworks of the Lantern Festival. But what these fireworks burned was life, the life of a saint expert. The outcome of this battle was already decided. The 3 Holy Lands were powerless to reverse the situation. Chu Wu Hui's face was ashen. This time, it's bad, as the sounds of slapping rang out continuously. Hai Wu Ye and He Ji Qiu both closed their eyes at the same time, the muscles on their faces twitching. This was the sound of experts from the Holy Lands turning into minced meat, falling from the sky. The entire place was completely silent. In the first battle, the other party was not injured at all. It could be said that it was because of their schemes and the power of their divine weapons that they won by luck. This was still acceptable. But in this second battle, it was the same. Could it be that they still needed to find an excuse? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.